Keaton Sparks, Allison, Julia Whitehead, who will lead us in the flag salute and read the land acknowledgement.
What happens, what works well is if you go in front of that TV, that way the camera can see you.
There you go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now I will read the land acknowledgements. Land acknowledgements. The Pacifica School District acknowledges that we gather on the unceded ancestral homelands of the Ramaytush Ohlone people. As guests, we humbly extend our gratitude to the Ramaytush Ohlone elders and community. We recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland, and we affirm their sovereign rights as the First Peoples. As the original stewards of this land, the Ramaytush Ohlone people understand the interconnectedness of all things and the importance of maintaining harmony with nature. Likewise, the Pacifica School District commits to teaching our school community how to be responsible as stewards of this land.
Thank you. And then we have a little presentation here. I kind of felt a little bit like Julie Andrews and The Sound of Music. So they're going to tell a few of their favorite things from 2022-23. All right.
So my favorite things this year were all the fun activities that we did with the other classes. And we had many great times playing games with our school families, watching middle schoolers' presentations, and reading to the kindergartners and third graders. I learned so much about my other classmen this year, and I hope to see them soon when I go to high school. My favorite memory of the year was the mock panel that my grade had put together. It was a lot of fun to learn words, and it brought us together with our performance of music. The case was about our first new voice, and it had many fun elements. I was able to become a lawyer, and it brought together my classmates too. Events like this throughout the year allow us to form stronger bonds with each other. This is one of the highlights of my year, and I look forward to connecting with others in the future. My favorite memory about my this school year was the variety show. I was part of the sound crew, and I learned lots of things like how to work the microphones, but I also learned a lot about the peers I was working with. I was also a participant in the variety show, and was glad that many people recognized the amount of effort me and my friends put into our acts. Although there were only a few rehearsals, I could tell that everyone improved and had such great growth in all their acts. I witnessed the entire stage crew, audience, and staff cheer on the kids performing, which was a heartwarming moment to watch. This show was one of my favorite memories because it reminded me of how nice, hardworking, and encouraging each student and staff here at Belmont is.
Hello. One of my favorite things this school year was our Spirit Days. One day out of every month, students got to dress up according to a certain theme. Some examples of themes we've had so far were Cultural Day, where students got to dress up as certain heritage backgrounds, and Sports Day, where students got to wear like jerseys or whatever they wanted from their favorite sports teams. We will have one more Spirit Day this year, which is this Friday, where we get to dress up in Pride colors to celebrate Pride Month. And the Spirit Days we celebrated this year helped students create a stronger bond with each other because they got to discover more things about each other and also help them express themselves.
My favorite thing this year were the middle school band concerts. I played the flute in beginning band, and it was really fun when my class got to play songs that we learned in band class in our winter and spring concerts. We got to play pieces like Ode to Joy, Furioso, and the Star Wars theme as a whole band, and even play our own mini ensembles with our classmates and friends. In the winter concert, I was part of a trio with two of my friends, and we played the piece In the Bleak Midwinter in front of the giant audience. Our concerts were the highlight of the school year, and I can't wait to do more next year.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us know. You're here. We really appreciate it. I'm sure that this is a time you have plenty of work to do. So thank you for presenting to us tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And for those in the audience, we have these nice seats that just opened up.
Barbara, would you please take the roll call?
Trustee Bell here, trustee Burkini
Here.
trustee Doug is here, trustee Bell here, trustee Villalobos here.
The district records the audio portion of the meetings. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. In-person speakers wishing to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items, please complete a request card with your name, address, and the item number and submit it to the board president or the superintendent. You'll be called to address the board and may speak for up to 3 minutes. Virtual speakers wishing to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items, please submit your first and last name and agenda item you wish to speak on in the Q&A area of the webinar. Please do not submit comments or questions in the Q&A area. You will be called to address the board. Your microphone will be unmuted and you may speak for up to 3 minutes. After you've spoken, your microphone will be muted. Report out on closed session topics. The board met in closed session to discuss closed session items, public employment, government code section 54957, B1, superintendent. The board took no action. Approval of minutes. It is recommended that the board approve the minutes of the May 10th, 2023 regular meeting. Are there any questions regarding these minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes on May 10th, 2023?
I'll make a motion to approve.
And do I have a second?
I'll second. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Motion passes 5-0.
Approval of the agenda and consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved with one motion, which is not debatable and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. If any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests, any item shall be removed from this section and placed in the regular order of business following approval of the consent agenda. Are there any questions regarding the agenda or consent agenda? All right. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda?
I'll motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes 5.
All right. Communications. Again, speakers wishing to address the board on agenda items or non-agenda items, please submit your first and last name and agenda item with this you wish to speak on the Q&A area of the webinar. Please do not submit comments or questions in the Q&A area. You will be called to address the board. Your microphone will be unmuted and you may speak for up to 3 minutes. After you've spoken, your microphone will be muted. All right, our first speakers tonight are representatives from LSEA.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you to everyone who attended our CSEA, LSEA end of year social at Siebel. We were able to give a round of applause in celebration of the retirement of Diane Chavez Stillman from Cabrillo School. Diane has been a strong behind-the-scenes leader of LSEA for many years. We thank her for her leadership and practical view at solving problems and finding solutions. Last week, I had the opportunity to have an informal chat with our new superintendent, Dr. Darnice Williams. LSEA continues to be optimistic for the future of PSD, and we look forward to working with her as she builds her foundation in our community. We have some work to do, but we are hopeful for good results. A few weeks ago, LSEA and CSEA had a meeting with Will Lucy to discuss the LCAP, which is being presented this evening. It felt really good having trustee Linda Burkini in attendance listening in. We shared our concerns, questions, and comments with Will, and the simple gesture of having a board member present was refreshing. We hope to see some of our recommendations of the LCAP process in the coming evolution of the plan. Thank you to Trustee Villalobos for attending a recent LSEA meeting. This was another opportunity where our members felt heard and valued by a board member. I shared both of these experiences with Dr. Williams last week. The simple gesture of sitting in on meetings are much appreciated. We hope to see more of it next year. Tonight's agenda is long and full of very important items. LSEA thanks all Elna Flynn recipients and the Pacifica Education Foundation for the hours and of time and effort you put forth for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is a representative from CSCA.
Hello, my name is Nicole Sayers, and I'm the president of CSEA Chapter 128. Tonight, I'd like to welcome Kristen Bork, a new behaviorist in our department, Tanner Feldman, custodian 1 for Ocean Shore School, and Carolyn Alvarez, a one-to-one paraprofessional at Linamar Educational Center. The CSEA Above and Beyond recipients for June go to Alex Garavito and Stan Kresniak. Alec is a district network analyst. Stan is our district's technology support technician. Both Alex and Stan work very hard to do a wonderful job of making sure our technology needs are met district-wide, along with the rest of the IT department. And this is not an easy task. Alec and Stan consistently go above and beyond to make sure that staff and students can access technology tools that they need. We are very grateful for their dedication to our district. CSEA Chapter 128 is very proud of all of our Above and Beyond Award recipients. We appreciate all of that you do. I'd like to thank Megan Ellsburn, the LSEA, for including CSEA at the end of the year get-together on May 18th. It was great to celebrate at Seabowl. It was nice to see people that we don't always get a chance to see, and it was great to bowl, so it was a very nice event. CSEA has had 3 negotiation sessions. At our last negotiation meeting, we were able to work with the district on putting together a flyer for summer custodial work, in which any district employee can apply if they would like to earn some extra money over the summer. We are hoping to get some applicants from the district so we can cut down on hiring contracted employees. Overall, negotiations have been a little bit disappointing in that we have not come to any agreements. We hope that the next negotiation on June 6th is taken seriously so both sides can communicate honestly and respectfully. Our negotiation team is committed to work through each proposal with integrity. Each of us carry years of institutional knowledge. We hope that the district will respect that knowledge and understand that when new ideas are brought up, we are only reaching back to the past years of the district. We want to move forward and try not to repeat some of the mistakes that were made in the past. As we come to the close of this school year, I would like to wish everyone a nice summer session. I hope we can take a breath and relax a little. I think we could all use a break, and hopefully when we come back in August, we will be ready and excited to start the new year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, next, people wishing to address the board. This is Nicole Avenatti. Sorry.
That's okay. Nicole and Natalie are very similar. Okay, in the 47-page document, low morale, strained relationships, and lack of confidence in leadership came out as clear themes. In this district, we have administrators, but we do not have leaders. Let me rephrase that. We do not have leaders in administration. There are many teacher leaders, there are many classified leaders. When PSD employees need help, they know which colleague to turn to, which colleague to lean on. I'm here to ask you to choose leadership, to choose it as a value and to choose it as something to work on and to spend time on. According to the Leadership Challenge workbook, when operating at their best, leaders model the way, inspire shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encourage the heart. Let's go through those. Model the way. Administrators cannot model the way when they are rarely seen. They cannot model the way when they are not trained. Let's take restorative practices. Administrators in this district are not trained, and yet they tout it over and over. In the worst cases, they try to use it, but only cause more harm because they do it incorrectly or incompletely. I have witnessed this and been personally harmed more than once. Leaders should go first in all things, but they cannot when they do not have training or are never there. Inspire a shared vision. This means looking forward. It means articulating a vision that we are all working toward. It means communicating, not just talking, but truly listening. Leadership is a dialogue, not a monologue. So often, this district makes choices about initiatives or processes. They are then either given to staff to comply with or do, but the why is rarely shared. It cannot be a shared vision if it is reactionary or people aren't given a purpose. Challenge the process. Leadership is not just waiting to be given direction from the state, from the county, from the superintendent. Leadership is looking for ways to move forward, but also looking at new ways of doing things. PSD is almost always reactionary, doing things only because there has been a problem. This is maintenance, not leadership. Enable others to act. Leaders should use we way more than I or you, and they should mean it. PSD has become more and more top-down in the past few years. Initiatives, plans, directions are given to staff to execute, but the ability to engage or adapt is not. Leaders inspire and empower their staff and give them tools and support to do their best jobs. Encourage the heart. I made the heartbreaking decision to leave this district, and it has nothing to do with money. As I discussed my decision with my colleagues, it broke my heart even more to hear the exhaustion, the frustration, the bitterness, and the hurt they feel in their daily work. This has nothing to do with the students. The employees of this district give everything they have and sometimes more for the students, yet they do not feel valued or cared for by administrators. Leaders show they value their people consistently with words and actions, and they do it genuinely, not just with a shirt during staff appreciation. I'm asking you to choose to be leaders as a board. I'm asking you to choose to value leadership and to foster it in administrators. I'm asking you to foster the heart in the community that was once so strong, but has been fading in the last few years due to lack of leadership. I've been here for 10 years, and this community means the world to me. I love it dearly. I hope that you choose to make this a place people want to stay again. Let me be the last to leave because this district has broken them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, Jennifer Mitchell.
Hi, I wasn't intending to do this. I'm going to tag on to what Natalie said, and I don't think I'm going out on a limb when I say that there is not a single person, from the principals to the custodians to the secretaries to the teachers at our school sites, that have what they need to do our jobs properly. That wasn't what I was going to talk about. Last Thursday was open house at Ocean Shore and Cabrillo, and I want to thank Heather for attending the Ocean Shore open house. We appreciate your acknowledgement of all of our hard work, even as you are preparing to depart the district. After checking with teachers at both schools, it seems that not a single board member or district administrator other than Heather attended either of the open houses. I want to encourage you to think about the message this sends, not only to the hardworking teachers, but also the students and the families in our community. Your presence matters. You're the decision makers and the leaders of this district. Your absence was disappointing, and it was noticed. It's no secret that the morale is low throughout this district. And I just want to tell you, a small pat on the back, like attending open house, makes a difference.
Next, anyone online would like to speak? No speakers? Okay, board correspondence.
I can start.
Okay.
I don't really have anything because I was traveling for my daughter's college graduation. But prior to that, I think we were hiring the new superintendent and having meetings around that.
That took some time.
Also,
That took some time.
and then I think I went to IBL once on Teacher Appreciation Day. But otherwise, I'm back.
I had a similar schedule, but I just wanted to thank Heather for the work you've done since you've been here. You will be missed. Thank you. Please come visit us. I will. And yeah, we appreciate you.
We're doing correspondence or?
Yeah.
Or,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. So I have similarly, no major correspondence, participated in the meetings around the new superintendent search, and attended staff appreciation for Sunset Ridge. My memory these days is fading, unfortunately. And I also wanted to send my thank you to Dr. Olson for her leadership in bringing the focus so quickly back to teaching and learning after COVID. It's very easy to continue to focus on operational elements, but the work of this school district, the work of the entire teaching staff and classified staff is teaching and learning. So thank you for bringing that focus back.
So the last couple of weeks was the attended the Elma Flynn dinner, which they're going to have as one of the items this evening, honoring the volunteers, and the spring concert for Ingrid B. Lacey and Ocean Shore, which was similar to the music concert that the kids are talking about today. We had a couple of workforce housing finance meetings and went to the LSCA, CSCA end of the year Siebel event, which was great to go to Siebel one last time since today's closing. My husband and I volunteered at the Ortega Carnival on the obstacle course, which is just totally insane. It's constant. There's not a stop in the thing. Met with the new superintendent, Dr. Williams. And just wanted to say I would have attended open houses last Thursday, but it was my own son's college graduation. So that's where I was. And thank you to Heather for everything in the last 5 years. This is not goodbye. We're gonna make her private.
All right. I thank you to LCA and CSCA for inviting myself and the board to the end of the year bowling party. It was good to see everyone in a more relaxed environment and to visit with everybody there. I also had a meeting with Dr. Williams, as well as some meetings with Dr. Olson. So tying things up and then opening things up to the next side. So workforce housing meeting also, and attended the Elma Flynn, and also attended Siren Fest, which is the Pacifica Girls Softball League skills event that they had on the upper field over at Cabrillo. So that was a fun day. So that's been my last few weeks.
I've been in principal interviews. That was fun. Dr. Williams sat in the second, and we'll talk about this when we talk about the Cabrillo principal, but Dr. Williams was a part of that. And so I've had a couple of occasions to spend some time with her, and I like her more every time I spend time with her. We got lucky. Thank you for all the work that went into that.
Well, and I will say also, and we are going to get more into it, but thank you. This will be my last board meeting with you because I won't be at the next meeting. But it's been a pleasure working with you all this time. We would have never known what we had to go through over the last 5 years, from it's just everything. So thank you very much. I know it's been challenging, and I know everyone has this feeling of wanting to be reconnected, but that's all of us are feeling that, and we all want to get reconnected, and that is our goal as we move forward. So we're all just still healing from COVID. So I think we're on our path to getting back to where we were. So and maybe better than that. So
thank you.
Anyway,
thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I guess I have to move on. Yes. All right, next, let's have our next presentation.
Elma Flynn Award.
The Elma Flynn Awards.
Do you all want to come sit? No, you don't want to sit down. Michelle
Gray is here.
Presenting most of the Elma Flynn Awards.
Yes.
Hi everyone, Michelle Gray. Very nice to be here with you. I'm the current IVL Middle School PPO President and the Parent Council Rep for the school. And on behalf of the Parent Council, I'm going to present and review real quick our award recipients for the 2022-2023 school year. As was mentioned, we had our Illness Fund banquet on May 12th. It was very fun. Those are always really nice events to see the different schools come out, show out, really show their school spirit and just enjoy each other's company. There was even music this year, which was really nice, Tony. So thank you for that. But I want to mention a little bit about the award. So it's, the Ella Flynn Volunteer Award was first presented in 1988. It's an annual celebration for those hardworking volunteer individuals who spend countless hours in the name of education at our various schools in Pacifica. The award's namesake, Elna Flynn, was the consummate volunteer. Not only did she volunteer while her 4 children went through the Pacifica School District, but she continued to volunteer even after her youngest graduated well into high school. She exemplified the word volunteer, and it is to her standard that we all aspire. It's in her honor that we recognize the value of volunteerism and how devoted we are to striving to support the education of all of our students. So with that, we'll go through the presentation real quick. I'm going to try and read it here because I can't see the screen. So we'll start with Sunset Ridge. We're really excited. Sunset Ridge, such an amazing school. We had 2 recipients this year. Bridget Hart was our first recipient. She joined the Sunset Ridge PTO as a room parent coordinator last year. She helped not only in that classroom, but she was there to show up at every single event. And they were able to lock her in as treasurer for this year's PTO. So she rose to the challenge and did an amazing job, contributing countless hours to thoughtfully investigating the best ways and best processes for a PTO treasurer to do their work. And so we really want to congratulate and thank Bridget for all her hard work. The next Sunset Ridge recipient is Rebecca Slater. It's okay.
There we go.
Are we good? Okay,
great.
Rebecca is the current PTO president at Sunset Ridge, and she also served as PTO secretary last year. She's an inclusive and flexible leader, is in front of most of the fundraisers, creating and producing commercials starring their students and really just making sure everyone feels welcome and valued as part of the Sunset Ridge community. She was awarded the Elna Flynn last year, so she's a repeat, which is wonderful. And Rebecca's just a fabulous human being. So congratulations to Rebecca. And we'll move on to Valley Mar Stallions right now. So I'm really happy to talk about Sarah Benavides. She's a wonderful person. She was involved with the PTO as soon as Julian, her oldest, started in kindergarten. And she served in multiple positions. I was on the board with her for many, many years. She was activities coordinator, co-president, and really everything in between. She is there always showing up with that great enthusiasm and support for everyone as part of the Valley Mar community. And we want to congratulate Sarah for being this year's award recipient. Perfect. Moving over to Ortega, the Otters. Adriana is another wonderful person. We were really lucky this year to have so many folks that have been involved in their PTOs for so long. So she's been on the PTO for many years in a variety of positions. And this year she was actually PTO communications secretary, which has one of the many responsibilities for getting word across the Ortega Otter community. But the most impressive thing is to get that weekly Otter Town news, which I just think is so fabulous. And I'm excited to be there next year. Adriana is the glue that holds that team together. They're a very strong PTO. She works tirelessly to ensure the events are covered and that everyone is on the same page with the information and they're coordinated. They wrote, she's an incredible gift and Ortega is a better school because of her tireless dedication. And I'm excited that she might be the PTO president next year. So congratulations to Adriana. And our next moves over to Lindemar Educational Center. So Lisa was just lovely to meet. It was the first time
I had met her at Alma Flynn, and she was clearly just loved by everyone there at LMEC. She makes every effort to spend equal time interacting with all of the students. I think they have about 35 or so there. And she just consistently is showing up and giving her best to all of those kids and their families. Her calm demeanor helps put everyone at ease. So LMEC was proud to honor such an incredible person. So congratulations to Lisa.
And next is Ingrid B. Lacey. It's Michelle Gray. First of all, I've known Michelle for a lot more years than just here at IBL. She worked. She let it slip. She was on the Valmark Award for a lot of years. But I went back and was like, when was the first time I knew Michelle? And she was reaching out because she knew someone that had some dietary needs, and she wanted to make sure that that person felt included in Fall Fun Fest, which was an event we were throwing. So she quietly behind the scenes said, I can pop the popcorn for everyone and make cookies so that everyone feels included and doesn't feel like they have to stand out. So from the very beginning, Michelle has always thought about everyone and making sure that everyone feels included. And I also want to say that if Michelle gives you your word that she's going to do something, she always does. It's great follow through and the perfect A+ volunteer, as you can see, because she's here giving her own presentation.
Here at all days.
Anyway, but I'll go ahead and read what we have here. So Michelle Gray served as Parents Council representative last year for IBL and is currently PTO president. Michelle is always looking for ways to help, talking with the teachers and staff about what they need, helping in the library, selling popsicles or snacks, or just stepping in where needed. From Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day to launching the successful IBL Rocks fundraiser for the grown-ups, her enthusiasm is infectious, making it clear that her main goal is to make sure everyone is engaged and supported in our amazing middle school community. Michelle has always done all she can do to benefit the kids, and absolutely an invaluable part of our community. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you very much. Good. Thank you for that. So Ocean Shore had 2 award recipients this year, and the first one that we want to highlight is Kristen Huang. So Kristen and her 3 kids have been part of the Ocean Shore community for 10 years. She's been on the board for 9 of those years and has taught science and art and helped organize wide events such as Diversity Day. And she also, I think this is heroic, quite frankly. She organized and directed the talent show for 7 years and kept that going through the pandemic. So having it in person is one thing, but being able to do that remotely with all these families still figuring out technology is phenomenal. So good for her. She's been a K-2 music teacher for the past 4 years, and she also taught at Valmark for a little while. So Kristen makes the impossible possible, and we want to congratulate her.
Ocean Shore's talent shows right now as we speak.
Oh, geez. Okay, well, we'll send them good luck. And the second recipient from Ocean Shore was Renee. Renee was the mainstay of the Ocean Shore Library, and she is a committed OSS grandma. When Renee started helping, Ocean Shore had no paid library staff, and the library used the Dewey Decimal System. And so with her lead, the books became organized into a very welcoming and user-friendly library for these kids. I know the library for me was always just such a wonderful place, and I love that she spent all that time there. She feels very strongly about giving back to her community, and she even worked full-time for Ocean Shore for 10 years for free. And so these are what all these volunteers are doing. So we're forever indebted to Renee for her countless contributions to Ocean Shore. Thank you and congratulations. For Cabrillo School, I want to acknowledge Suzanne Lisson Salazar. So she's the award recipient this year. So for each of the 9 years her daughter Bianca has been at Cabrillo, Suzanne has tirelessly supported the entire community, from teaching French, and she also teaches that at other schools, which is great, to cooking in the hallways, to growing the after-school enrichment program. Her positive presence has always been welcomed and appreciated.
She's an inspiration to all the burgeoning young writers. She presented work in the Wickedly Awesome Travel series to the students. Her advocacy for the community is amazing, whether as parent council rep, fundraising for PEF, or volunteering for Measure O. Her involvement conveys her belief that if everyone does a little, a lot gets done. So congratulations to Suzanne. Thank you all, and congrats to everybody.
All right, our next presentation is from the Pacifica Education Foundation. Emily Hennessy.
Emily Hennessy is going to join us online, Lily. You can make her a panelist. And we may also want to make Johnny Davis, next year's PEF president, also a panelist. Someone is elevating. There's Johnny Davis. Hi, Johnny.
Hi, Heather. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us.
Hi, so sorry, I was on mute. Didn't realize that. Good evening, everybody. Can you guys hear me okay?
You're good.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you for your time this evening. I'm Emily Hennessy. I am currently the president of the Pacifica Education Foundation, and Johnny Davis is here with me, and he is the vice president of PEF. And so we're here to give you an update on what we've been up to this year and to talk a little bit about what we plan for next year. Next slide, please. So the agenda, what we want to go through really quickly for some of you that don't know who PEF is and what we do, we want to sort of go over that quickly. We want to talk to you about what we funded for the current school year. We want to talk about what we raised for this year, and to give you an overview of how we raise money just in general. And then of course, how you can support PEF and how you can contact us. Next slide, please. I lost you there. Sorry. Hold on one sec. The Zoom disappeared. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, I can't see the slide. So I think we're on. Who is the Pacific Education Foundation? Sorry, I lost the Zoom. So our mission is to. Oh, sorry.
Icon. If you get it from your Zoom icon, does it come up?
It didn't. Somehow it disappeared.
Okay.
Weird. I don't know. This is not usually. Sorry. Anyway, so I'm going a little blind. So please stop me if I'm on the wrong slide. So,
do you want to pull up the deck you shared?
Yeah, I'm going to pull it up. Yeah, that's fine. So I think we're on the right. Okay. So I apologize for a little bit of technology snafu. So PEF's mission is to protect and advance the quality education for all students in the district. We were founded in 2008, so we are celebrating our 15th anniversary this year, which is very exciting. And we'll tell you in a bit how we've exceeded our goal, which makes even our 15th anniversary even better. So we are a nonprofit charitable organization, so we're a 501c3. We are completely independent of the school district, although we work in alignment with them. We began providing programmatic funding to the district in school year 9-10. We did take about a year and a half to sort of get up to speed and ready to sort of collaborate more consistently with the district. We are a 6-person volunteer board, and we are all full-time professionals as well as parents. 90%, we're very proud of this. So 96% of our revenue goes directly to program costs, which equates really to funding that goes to the district that ends up to the schools. We have very little overhead, and so we really pride ourselves on being very, very lean and mean. Finally, we raise funds from the Pacifica community, which is not only the schools, the families in the schools, but families that have graduated of the district, and then the general community. And we just really want, our focus is around if PEF funds any kind of programming, we make sure this is equitable across all 6 schools in the district. Next slide, please. Sorry, I have to follow along. Okay, so the goals of PEF are, one, we raise funds to fill district gaps, which means that PEF really aligns with the district's strategic plan. We work very closely with the district. We don't take on funding anything unless the district wants to take that on as something, again, speaking to the equity of it and making sure that it's strategic and that it's longer term. We also support core curriculum, which is part of that vision. And then finally, we promote, as I said earlier, promote equity across all schools in the district, which equates to, if PEF provides funding, it is not just to a particular school, it would be to all schools that have, for the particular, that have the grades, the students in the grades. So for elementary music, for instance, we provide funding for all of the schools that have 3rd through 5th grade. Next slide. Sorry, I'm going. Okay, so the funding for the current year is we've provided $92,000 to support the elementary music program for 3rd through 5th graders. We are providing $24,000 to support the middle school band program. And then finally, almost $25,000 for the Spark Poetry for 5th graders. So our budget is total of funding $140,000 this year, which is a little less. In prior years, prior to the pandemic, it's been around $160,000. So we're looking at trying to get more into that space in future years. But I do want to mention that for the current school year, PEF is very excited that we're working to raise grant funds that will support the expansion of the elementary music program to the TK through 2nd graders. So this is something that PEF has wanted to do for a long time, around being able to support all grades in the district. And so this has been a gap for the TK through 2nd graders. So we're really excited about this partnership. And, another thing that is part of PEF's roots is around being an entity that could help with the innovation and expanding programs. So again, this sort of gets us back to that space. So we're really, really excited about that. Next slide, please. So in general, how does PEF raise funds? So first, we raise funds through events. In the past, you may have known, prior to the pandemic, we had the PEF-a-thon, and then we had a gala. Post-pandemic, we realized that we really needed to concentrate more of our resources on the gala, which we did hold it in March this year. We had an amazing turnout with families and school staff really wanting a night out, and so it was very successful. We held it at Skyline College at the Johnny, what's the room? Sorry, I can't remember
the Farallon Room?
The Farallon Room, yes. And so the feedback we got from attendees was that they really liked the space. We're happy that we could give families an opportunity to be out, socialize, especially after the pandemic. And so we raised $55,000, and after all expenses, we expect to net $40,000, which is a huge win for us. And we expect to actually hold it again around March next year, and we're working right now to solidify a date for next year. So we're really happy to sort of repeat this event. The feedback we got was that it was good timing, fun by all, and we can certainly start telling families about it a lot earlier. The second way we raise funds is through donation days. So we held this year's donation days earlier this month. We really, after having an event in March and then going back to families in the district and asking them to again donate to donation days, families came out really strong. We had an amazing campaign across the entire district, and we really do expect to meet our fundraising goal of $80,000, which we met that last year with not holding a gala. So we are really proud of the families in our community to really come out and support PEF. Finally, we raise funds through our family membership program. So our program has 4 different membership levels, which have different benefits tied to those levels. And we really set these up so that we could enable families to give based on what works for their families. one of the proud thing, and Johnny can certainly talk about this because he really is the person that deserves most of the credit around this, is developing the business partnerships. So one of the benefits of the family membership program is that if you're a member of PEF, you get access to our local business partners who offer a special discount or special promotion to PEF members. And so we have almost 60, right, Johnny? Almost 60 partners. It's
59.
59, yeah. So, and Johnny knocks on all the doors on every local business, uses connections, and just is very diligent about getting local businesses to support PEF and the general community. So if you're not a PEF member, you certainly should be a PEF member, even just for that benefit alone. Next slide. Okay, so how you can support PEF. So there's lots of ways, and I've kind of touched on a little bit of it, like becoming a PEF member. And then one of the things that we really want to encourage members to do is to use your PEF membership card. So I'm guilty of that, as I don't have it with me and I go shop with one of the 59 partners of PEF. But it's really important for the businesses to know that you're a PEF member, so that they see that they visibly see there's a benefit to being a member, being a local business partner of PEF. So if you are a member, definitely show your card and let them know that you're a PEF member. One thing is also to share the PEF events with others you know. So, we hold the gala and it's great. We want more and more people to attend. We, so we really would like, community members to share with others. The event's not exclusive to just the Pacifica residents. We'd want family, friends outside to come enjoy the event and support PEF. Spread the word about PEF, just what we do in general, the membership program, supporting us, distinction between what we fund, the programs we fund, and sort of our vision going forward. One thing we've done recently that in the last year that we haven't done prior to that is really engage in an active grant seeking and writing process. So I know that over the years, since inception, PEF has been successful in securing donations, but not on a regular basis. So we've really put a concerted effort into that, led by one of our board members, John Downing. And he's really been working with a grant writer around research and submitting applications. So we've been really successful, given this is the first concerted effort we've done over a significant amount of time. And we've gotten, 5,000 here, 10,000 here and there, but it's just the start. So we're really happy to continue this effort over the next year and beyond. And then finally, the PEF board we're in a bit of a flux. We do have board members that have been on for years, that their kids are aging out of the district. And so we are actively looking for candidates that would like to serve as a board member. I haven't touched very much on the ambassador program, but each of the schools has an ambassador that is connected to PEF and sort of is the liaison between PEF, the PTO, and the school, and the principals. And so we are always looking for at least 2 individuals to serve at each of the schools. So if you identify anybody that would be interested in serving as a board member or as a volunteer, as a school ambassador or in other capacity, please send them our way. Next slide. Okay, how you can contact PEF. So below is our contact information. So you can get a hold of just the general email at PEF. You can get a hold of myself or Johnny. So feel free to contact us about anything that we reviewed or any questions you have. Finally, I wanted to end with saying that PEF would like to thank Superintendent Olson for all of her collaboration and partnership. We have made tremendous strides with her leadership around defining what PEF is, what it does, distinguishing it from the PTOs. She's been instrumental in bringing the PTO presidents and myself together and working very collaborative and supporting one another. And I just thank her for that, because it's made the world of a difference. And I think that PEF's success in fundraising over the last several years has been definitely contributed to Heather's commitment to PEF and making sure that everybody in the district understands the importance of it. So we will truly miss you, Heather, and we have really enjoyed working with you, and we wish you the very best on your journey. I'm not going to get too emotional, but anyhow, so we're just grateful for the partnership. And we really look forward to working with Dr. Williams, and really we're excited about what is to come next school year and beyond. So, any questions?
Any questions from the trustees? No. Johnny and Emily, you are first up on the recognition, the volunteer recognition, but we have a few other things to do. So if you can stick around and be in the audience, we'll elevate you to panelists when we get up to that, but it's going to be a long board meeting.
Okay, no problem. Okay. Thank you everybody for your time. Oh, go ahead, Johnny.
Thank you very much. Lucky Emily.
Okay. All right then. All right, we'll move on to district business. District goals. The district values the goals provided in our local control accountability plan and strategic plan. All of our district board agenda items are tied to these goals. One or more goals are listed in the description of each board agenda item. The details of each of those district goals can be accessed on district website at www.pacificasd.org. All right, first is resolutions of appreciation for retiring teachers, classified staff, and administrators. And Dr. Torres.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Dr. Olson. Today I have resolutions of appreciation for retiring management and certificate staff. It is recommended that the board approve resolutions 2023-05318 through 2023-0531D for retirees as follows: Diane Chavez-Stillman, Michelle Kale, Dan Little, Heather Olson. Each of the retirees have provided the Pacifica School District with many years of devoted service and played a significant role in educating our students. It is fitting on the occasion of their retirement that the district recognize each of them with a resolution of appreciation. An invitation to attend the board meeting was extended to 3 of the employees. One of our employees, Michelle Kale, gave notice of her retirement earlier in the year, but unexpectedly passed away last month. We would like to recognize her years of dedication and service to the Pacifica School District with a resolution. The resolutions will be presented this evening, acknowledging and thanking our retiree recipients for their many years of dedication and commitment to the students and the community of the Pacifica School District. In addition, we have Elise Lester, field representative from the Office of Assembly Member Mark Berman, presenting certificates in the honor of each recipient's contributions to the Pacifica School District.
All right, all of that. Let's see. Are there any questions regarding these resolutions?
So I think we vote.
All right.
And then we read, right?
Yes. And do I have a motion to approve these resolutions of appreciation?
I'll make the motion to approve these resolutions.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes 5-0.
All right.
And we would like to start by having Principal Rachel Carrion reading Diane Chavez-Stillman's resolution.
Except that, as I understand it, Rachel is sick with a sore throat and not able to join us either in person or virtually. So could you read it?
Definitely.
Okay. Do we want to elevate Diane? Diane's in the audience. Do we want to elevate her to a panelist?
Yes.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, thank you.
D. Stillman?
So,
She here?
yeah, she's there.
Hi, Diane.
Hi, Diane.
All right. Resolution number 2023-531A. Diane Chavez-Stillman. Resolved by the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District, County of San Mateo, State of California, that whereas Diane Chavez-Stillman has been a highly successful teacher in the Pacifica School District since August 28, 2000, and whereas Ms. Chavez-Stillman has enriched the lives of a countless number of students and their families, and whereas Ms. Chavez-Stillman has provided excellent support to her administrators, teachers, staff, and students, demonstrating incredible patience, caring, and pride in her work in school, Ms. Chavez-Stillman was truly loved and respected by all. And whereas Ms. Chavez-Stillman has fulfilled all her duties and responsibilities as a teacher in a professional and highly exemplary manner. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District extends its best wishes to Diane Chavez-Stillman upon the occasion of her retirement following 23 years of faithful and dedicated service to public education, and extends its sincere best wishes for a rewarding and fulfilling future. Regularly passed and adopted this 31st day of May, 2023.
Thank you. Diane, any?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. It's great on the big screen.
Second, we have Principal Patrick Jackson reading Michelle Kale's resolution.
And after he comes up, Mr. Little's on deck. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Patrick.
Hi.
Okay, all yours.
Thank you. Michelle Kale. Resolved by the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District, County of San Mateo, State of California, that whereas Michelle Kale gave notice of her retirement from the Pacifica School District to begin after this school year ended, but passed away in April 2023, we would like to respectfully recognize her service and contribution to the Pacifica School District. And whereas Michelle Kale was a well-respected, longtime teacher in the Pacifica School District since January 4th, 1988. And whereas Ms. Kale enriched the lives of a countless number of students and their families. And whereas Ms. Kale provided excellent support to her administrators, teachers, staff, and students, demonstrating incredible patience, caring, and pride in her work and school. Ms. Kale was truly loved and respected by all. And whereas Ms. Kale fulfilled all her duties and responsibilities as a teacher in a professional manner. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District respectfully acknowledge Ms. Kale's 35 and a half years of faithful and dedicated service to public education, regularly passed and adopted this 31st day of May, 2023.
Thank you, Patrick. It's not you.
Next, we have Dr. Heather Olson reading Dan Little's resolution.
All right, let's get Mr. Little up here. He's here. There you go, Dan. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right, congratulations on your retirement. So as your boss, I get to read this one. Resolved by the Board of Trustees of Pacifica School District, County of San Mateo, State of California, that Dan Little has been a principal in the Pacifica School District since July 31st, 2014, providing consistency and stability to the Ingrid B. Lacey community and staff. And whereas Mr. Little has enriched the lives of countless number of students and their families, and whereas Mr. Little has provided support to the assistant principal, teachers, staff, and students, demonstrating patience, caring, and pride in his work in his school. Whereas Mr. Little is a respected educator and was previously a special education teacher and an assistant principal in Belmont and San Bruno. And whereas Mr. Little was a leader in technology use for students and staff. Whereas at a time when our schools had limited number of shared devices for technology, Mr. Little applied for and received grants to provide more devices for students. And whereas Mr. Little continued to support staff, students, and families through all stages of the pandemic, with Ingrid B. Lacey Middle School well positioned to move to distance learning because of his expertise in technology and their additional devices. Whereas when a nearby school experienced a flood, making their campus unusable, Mr. Little provided the IBL gym as well as classrooms for a week. He greeted the students and staff as they arrived at school and made them feel welcome at a time both staff and students were feeling unsure. And he didn't even let the kindergartners know he was afraid of them. Whereas Mr. Little has fulfilled all his duties and responsibilities as a principal in a professional and highly exemplary manner. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District extends its best wishes to Daniel Little upon the occasion of his retirement, following 9 years of faithful and dedicated service to public education, and extends its sincere best wishes for a rewarding and fulfilling future. Regularly passed and adopted this 31st day of May. Any words, Daniel?
I just want to say thank you to everybody and for the opportunities that Pacifica has given me. And I really truly enjoyed working with our IBL family, watched it transform into something fantastic. And I'm really going to miss everybody. But thank you very much for the kind words. And thank you, Pacifica, for everything that you've done for me.
Thank you, Dan, for joining us. There's a little heart going up the screen. I don't know if you can see that from home, but flaps and hearts going up the side.
And we have the Board of Trustees and staff reading Dr. Olson's resolution.
All right. So I will go ahead and begin. All right. Resolution 2023-05-31-D, Pacifica School District, County of San Mateo, San Mateo, State of California, retirement of our Superintendent, Dr. Heather Olson. Whereas leadership matters for the Pacifica School District and the students we serve every day, the strong leadership, resilience, flexibility, problem solving, and hard work of Superintendent Dr. Olson has supported the successful education of the students of Pacifica and supported school staff and families. And
whereas the title superintendent is a term used to define educational leadership, superintendents are essential in supporting the entire community. Dr. Olson has given unreservedly of her time and talents as superintendent of the Pacifica School District. And
whereas our dedicated superintendent, Dr. Olson, has persevered through the ongoing pandemic by prioritizing the health and well-being of students and staff by arranging for contact tracing, keeping students connected to school, communicating with families and staff, and ensuring that children have access to meals. And
whereas Dr. Olson helped guide the district to a 1-to-1 computer ratio, as well as implementing an updated district internet infrastructure to support this modernization. And whereas Dr. Olson has brought workforce housing from a dream to a reality. And
whereas Dr. Olson led the district through the curriculum adoption process for a new science curriculum, a phonics program, and social emotional learning curriculum, always keeping equity at the forefront. And
whereas Dr. Olson has led principals through learning walks and through professional development around improving their educational practices, evaluation practices, and cultural proficiency. And
whereas as we navigated through RSV, COVID variants, and other natural disasters, Dr. Olson was able to keep the focus on student learning and mental health. And
whereas Dr. Olson helped reestablish the summer school program to support learning loss as a result of the global pandemic and
whereas Dr. Olson understood the importance of family engagement in student success and the need to address the mental health of students and brought counselors to all schools. And
whereas Dr. Olson worked with parents, volunteers, community partners, and staff to meet the needs of our students and families and held quarterly PTO, PEP, and CPAC leadership meetings with kindness, openness, and an approachable manner where people felt heard and listened to. And
whereas the Pacifica School District would like to recognize and appreciate Dr. Olson's leadership and compassion. And
now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees and the community it serves extends its best wishes to Dr. Heather Olson upon the occasion of her retirement following 5 years of service to public education to the Pacifica community and an additional 27 years of service to public education, and extends its best wishes for a rewarding and fulfilling future. And
be it further resolved that we pause to pay tribute to Dr. Heather Olson on the occasion of her retirement as superintendent of the Pacifica School District. Thank you for your outstanding leadership during this most unprecedented of times. Adopted this 31st day of the month of May 2023.
Thank you.
All right, so those of you who know me know that I'm not going to be able to speak deeply without crackling my voice and without tears in this, but it has absolutely been my honor to be the superintendent of this district. And, you know, while I may have been the head of this, we would not have gotten through this without all of us working together. And as I was talking to someone about the principals and the close relationship with the principals, is I'm pretty sure that we met every day for the first 3 months of the pandemic. Like, I think we had a noon meeting every single day. And it was just working shoulder to shoulder to figure these things out. And it was a collective effort from our CSEA leadership and our CSEA ranks that were out there kind of being the first ones serving lunch at a time that people really needed the food, to our maintenance and operations team, our teachers that moved quickly to the pandemic, moved quickly to be able to go to distance learning. And it has been the collective group that has been that success. And so my success is our success. And I just want to thank you all, to my 5 bosses. We've been through a lot, and I truly appreciate your support in the challenging things that we've had in front of us. And I'm so incredibly proud of us in terms of being able to make it through this transition and identify the next leader. And it's my honor to pass off the baton to her. And I will be watching from the sidelines and cheering and available for, you know, consults and conversations. But I will truly miss all of you. I am very, very proud of our collective work. So thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so next, our next speaker is, we're going to go over resolutions of appreciation of the parent volunteers and parent Pacific Education Foundation. This is an action item.
Good. I get to go first on that one. Thank you. We'll put that over there. So could we have our friends from PEP back? So each of our schools also wants to recognize their current population, but I'm going to start us off with hopefully Johnny Davis and Emily Hennessy are back. Maybe next time we do this meeting, we can figure out the timing so that the people who are presenting also get their awards. Hi, Johnny. Johnny is.
Hi, Heather. Thanks for having us back.
Great, and hopefully Emily can join us. I don't know that here she comes. So Emily and Johnny are leaders of PEP, but PEP is a very small but mighty group of people. And so I would like to start by reading off this presentation. And then as we do each school's presentation, they're going to highlight a few of their specific things. So resolved by the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District, County of San Mateo, State of California, whereas the Pacifica Education Foundation has become a treasured, supportive, and invaluable volunteer base for the Pacifica School District, always focused on meeting the needs of all of our students and teachers. Whereas this all-volunteer nonprofit organization of parents and community members have brought a wealth of experience, energy, and excitement to the benefit of Pacifica School District by providing support to identified areas of need in instruction and other educational support. And whereas the foundation has given liberally of their volunteer time and effort, always putting in a good deal of fun and community spirit, including the 0.5K race in October. Perhaps that's one that you might be interested in, Ms. Nordgaard. Half-a-mile race in October, whereas PEP restarted the PEP Gala in an elegant venue to bring adults together to raise money to support student programs. Whereas each member of the foundation has worked tirelessly to provide additional funding to support all the students of Pacifica receive a quality education that the state of California underfunds, such as Spark Poetry, 3rd through 5th grade music, and 6th through 8th grade band. Whereas the foundation collaborates with the district staff so Pacifica School District may remain focused in providing educational experiences and programs that prepare our students for an evolving world, including plans to offer music to all TK through 8th grade students, with the Pacifica Education Foundation applying for additional grants, including funds to support music curriculum, instruments, and instructional materials. Whereas PEP exceeded their fundraising expectations this year, raising almost $200,000. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District hereby extends its heartfelt appreciation to the Pacifica Education Foundation on behalf of the community, staff, and most importantly, the students of the district, regularly passed and adopted this 31st day of May, 2023.
Thank you.
Yay.
We haven't adopted that one yet. Sorry. We haven't voted on that one yet.
And if the board is in agreement with that resolution, would someone please make a motion to approve it?
I'll motion to approve. I'll second.
All right, Barbara.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay.
And just a very brief thing is that, so Emily Hennessy is handing over the reins of presidency to Johnny Davis in the next year. I cannot thank you enough, the two of you, and to the whole PEP board for all that you've done over the last years. Just like we were all affected by the pandemic, also PEP's fundraising was, but just through your hard work and community spirit, we're right back at it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Johnny and Emily?
Well, just for correction, Johnny is we're in search of a co-president, so he would like to serve in a co-capacity. So if anybody, wants to join Johnny in this next phase of the PEP life, certainly let us know. But it's been an honor, really, to serve with PEP. Not only as a board member, but as part of a co-president and then as president. It's been an amazing ride, and I can't believe how families in our community have really pulled together during the pandemic. And I mean, PEP has remained solvent during all of that. So, I can't thank the district enough around the support you've given and the connection you've had with the schools and just bringing us together. It's been indescribable around those kind of partnerships that we did not have prior to your leadership, Heather. So thank you so much for that. And
it is one of the things that I'm most proud of is the parent leadership and that connection with the PTOs and PEP.
I'm very proud of them. So thank you very much.
Mhm. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Well, I'm gonna do this one to get.
Okay, perfect. Good.
Okay, so we are going, it is recommended that the Board of Trustees adopt resolutions number 2023-05-31-E through 2023-05-31-L in appreciation of parent volunteers and PATH. Are there any questions for this resolution? Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolutions.
All right, and a second.
I'll second.
All right.
All in favor, please raise your hands. Motion passes 5-0.
All right.
I might have messed that up.
It's okay. It's all right. So now we can next go to Pacifica. Our parent volunteers. Yep.
Resolved by the Board of Trustees of the Pacifica School District, County of San Mateo, State of California, that whereas the Sunset Ridge Elementary School PTO, the Diversity Inclusion Action Committee, School Parent Council, DLAC Committee, CPAC Committee, Room Parent Committee, the School Site Council and ELAC Committee, and the Pacifica Education Foundation representative have been a treasured, supportive, and invaluable volunteer base for the Sunset Ridge Elementary School site, always recognizing that it is all about the children. And
whereas the parent volunteers of Valamar School have brought a wealth of experience, energy, and excitement to the benefit of the Valamar School site by contributing their time and efforts to provide a warm, welcoming, and professionally rewarding atmosphere for the teachers and staff of the school. And
whereas the parent volunteers of Ingrid B. Lacey Middle School have given liberally their volunteer time and effort, always putting a good deal of their own personality into every volunteer effort. And
whereas each member of these vital groups has worked tirelessly and when asked to raise monies to provide the extras needed for the school site, oftentimes raising money to provide for the basic needs of the school. And
I can do that. Jean is not here because they're having their talent show.
There he is. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom.
And
whereas the Ocean Shore School Parent Teacher Organization, including the Diversity Learning Group, the Environmental Action Team, representatives to all district committees that included the Parent Council, as well as individuals and groups who oversee and help manage all of the Ocean Shore classrooms, special activities, Oceans 411, field trips, and enrichment, have worked together recognizing their common good of experiential learning and a well-rounded education in their capacity as volunteers and parents. And
Patrick's coming up, or you want me to finish it up? Okay.
Whereas the parent volunteers of Ortega Elementary School have brought a wealth of experience, energy, and excitement to the benefit of the Ortega school site by contributing their time and efforts to provide a warm, welcoming, and professionally rewarding atmosphere for the teachers and staff of the school. And
whereas the Cabrillo Elementary School Parent Council, CPAC, PTO, and PEF liaisons, Parent Stakeholder Committee, class liaisons, creative art volunteers, library volunteers, and a myriad of other volunteer positions that make the school run so smoothly every day have worked so very well together, recognizing their similarities and differences in their capacity as volunteers and parents. Can I bring it home? All right. Further be it resolved that the board extends its heartfelt appreciation to all parent groups on behalf of the community, staff, and most importantly, the students of the district. Regularly passed and adopted this 31st day of May, 2023. Thank you for your participation. Thank you to our recipients in the audience. Really, truly, an amazing thing about this district is the level of involvement from our parents, from advocacy to volunteers, and we would not be the same district without you. So thank you very, very much.
All right. All right. Next up is the Cabrillo Elementary School principal. We would like to action item
Parish family for their patience while we have our longest meeting of the year. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Good evening, Board of Trustees. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the hire of Tiffany Parrish as principal of Cabrillo K-8 School for the 2023-2024 school year. Tiffany Parrish was selected as the next Cabrillo K-8 school principal from a pool of highly qualified candidates. Tiffany has a Master's of Arts in Educational Leadership from Notre Dame de Namur and a bachelor's degree in Child Development from California State University, Chico. Tiffany's certifications include an Administrative Services credential and an English single subject teaching credential. Her work experience reflects being an assistant principal of Clifford TK8 School in Redwood City School District for 4 years. As an assistant principal, she oversaw the instructional program for grade levels TK through 8th grade and led positive behavioral interventions and supports, social emotional learning, and other school culture initiatives. Ms. Parrish was also a teacher leader for the English Language Arts Department at the McKinley Institute of Technology Middle School, where she taught English Language Arts, Social Studies, and English Language Development. Tiffany's skill highlights include a restorative and consistent approach to discipline and behavior management, a highly collaborative team member, and prioritizes positive communication. Lastly, Ms. Parrish is a Cabrillo parent with a soon-to-be graduating 8th grader. We are happy to welcome Tiffany to the Pacifica School District community. And then we talk a little bit about the selection process as well. The selection process began by posting to the position on EdJoy, followed by collecting input from staff and families regarding what they would like to see in the next Cabrillo K-8 school principal. All EdJoy candidates' applications and supportive documentations were screened, and 4 of those candidates were invited to the first round of interviews on May 23rd, 2023. The interview panel for the first round of interviews consisted of Cabrillo School certificated and classified staff, Cabrillo parents, and Pacifica School District management. Finalists were selected by the interview panel and moved forward to the second round of interviews with the Pacifica School District cabinet, including incoming Superintendent Dr. Williams. The second round of interviews was conducted on May 24th, 2023. The Pacifica School District made the final selection and offered Tiffany Parrish the Cabrillo K-8 school principal position for the 2023-2024 school year. And she said yes. Congratulations, Tiffany.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions on this item?
So we will approve, and then if you want to just have a few words with us after the approval.
Yes, so do I have a motion to approve the hire of Tiffany Parrish as principal of Cabrillo School K-8 2023-2024 year?
A motion.
Okay, a second. All of it really raising hands. Motion passes by 0.
First of all, kudos to the entire parish.
Oh yeah, thank you guys all for my family being here. I'm very, very excited to join this community. I mean, I'm part of the community as a parent, but my heart has been split for several years working in another school community. So I cannot extend my gratitude enough to the leadership here in this district. I'm so honored and humbled to be able to be a leader here. I'm very excited to join the community as a staff, as a leader there. You know, being the parent there, it's very different. It's such a warm community, and I can't wait to see the new facets that I uncover there as a school leader. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I'm so excited to join this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And since we have several more hours left, we'd like to allow you to.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank you.
the other thing is the certificates from Representative Berman's office. Did we miss that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Since we're still in the recognition version of this, we don't want to make it.
Thank you for the.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh, thank you very much. Stand up. Thank
Yes,
you.
of course.
Wait, can I get a picture?
Yes.
It's going on Instagram. Oh yeah, what's the certificate? Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you so much. This is an honor. How's everyone doing? We're okay? We can keep going.
Okay. All right. Next will be our resolution 2023-05-31-M, recognizing June as LGBTQ plus Pride Month. This is the action item. Dr. Olson.
I think two things with this item is I don't think I'm going to read you all 2 pages of this, but this is Pacifica Pride's second annual event. This is the second year that we'll be flying the flags at all of our school sites. We did 1 year just at the district office, and it's a very important message to say that our schools are safe places for all students. So with that, I would ask you to approve this resolution. And then I have a question that I think warrants just a little bit of discussion from the board.
Are there any questions regarding this item? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the resolution recognizing June as LGBTQ plus Pride Month?
Do you want to make it?
Okay, and a second. Okay.
I'm sure I'll do it. I was just wondering, did you want to?
Oh, it's okay. That's all right. That's right.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes 5-0.
And then just the item warranting just a little bit of board discussion is there was a request by a parent that we fly the pride flag all year long. That's not my recommendation. It is my recommendation that we maintain that in June. And that's particular to a board policy that we have around district speech and the flags being flown as a part of district speech. We certainly could use the flag to fly representing other student groups or areas of student recognition. But I think we are our classrooms and our schools can have pride flags flying all year long. But what flies from the flagpole is district speech. So that would be my recommendation: is that we stay with June only. But I said I would put it up for some board discussion. Not really a vote, but direction.
Well, I think it's a slippery slope if we kind of extend it throughout the whole year. I mean, I'd be absolutely in support of schools putting a flag in the window or murals or classrooms, doing it in that type of way. But I think it starts to get into kind of into legal trouble a little bit if we're flying different flags, different times of the year. But I want other people.
We only use the U.S. flag and the California flag year round.
We do, yes.
To me, that's fine. I don't have it wouldn't bother me to fly the pride flag all year round, but I think we have different months that we celebrate, and we might have other flags coming along in the next year that we don't even know about. So we want to make sure that we make space for others.
And there's a very specific process in that board policy around if there were organizations that it has to come from a student, but if the students wanted a flag representing their affiliation, there's a very specific process for that. Any other thoughts?
I just want to say I agree with you on this. I just came from my daughter's graduation from an American Indian college, where every tribal flag represented every student who was graduating. And I just think it's a little bit more special when it's coming out for for an occasion, you know, instead of all year round. And I think that the American flag and the California encompasses us all, regardless of what our traditions are.
So I'm getting the direction is that we'll fly the pride flag in June. The pride, that's my crash. The Pride Progress flag in June, and that if any other organizations come forward, that there's a process for that. So thank you for that information.
Right. Next, we'll move on to resolution 2023-05-31-N, recognizing Juneteenth Independence Day. It's an action item also.
And so again, I won't read the 2 pages of that. However, this was an important one because Juneteenth came at a very rushed time 2 years ago as a state and federal holiday. And so just making sure that everyone understands that is that the state of California has designated Juneteenth as Independence Day as a special day of observance and recognition of the emancipation of all enslaved people in the United States of America. And President Biden recognized this important day as a federal day in June. And so it is to celebrate the end of the Civil War and the emancipation of Black Americans, and committed together to eradicate systemic racism that still undermines our founding ideals and collective prosperity. And so then to cut to the chase from specifically Pacifica School District, recognizes June 19th as a reminder to continue our work eliminating racism, racial bias, and educational disparities within the district by committing to change the systems that produce those outcomes, and an opportunity to fulfill a commitment to increase training and curriculum content development in all school disciplines that recognize the impact, achievements, and contributions from African Americans throughout the year, not only during Black History Month and other designated days.
All right, are there any questions regarding this item? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the resolution recognizing Juneteenth Independence Day?
I will make that motion to recognize Juneteenth as Independence Day.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor, motion passes by 0.
All right, we're finally getting to our 7:45 public hearing.
All right.
Okay, so learning control and accountability plan and annual updates. This is an information item, and it's our speaker is Will Lucy.
Hi. Yes, this is not a resolution. Before you is an informational item to solicit recommendations and comments regarding the proposed 2023-2024 LCAP. The LCAP is developed in 3-year cycles. This iteration is the 3rd and final year of the present cycle that was developed in 2021 for the 21-24 school years. Many of the goals, metrics, and actions have been part of the LCAP since its original development in 2021. As in past years, this year's edits and additions have been made based off data and community input. Details about the LCAP development process and the stakeholder or educational partner engagement can be found in the educational partners engagement section of the LCAP, which is the document that was attached to this item. We started off with this slide when we first introduced this LCAP. Our story started 2 years ago when developing the 2021-2024 LCAP, with first identifying what students and staff needs were, to knowing each student and their strengths and challenges based off this knowledge, what staff would need to know in addressing those needs. We continue to operate within the tier systems of support, both academically and social, emotionally, behaviorally, to support our students in addressing the social, emotional, and academic needs. The tier system of support continues to be used. Universal Tier 1 with all students, select Tier 2 with at-risk students, and intensive Tier 3 for high-risk students. So what we've learned from our educational partners, and this was part of the process that we did this year when we met with our educational partners. I'm not going to read this whole slide out, but I do want to highlight a couple of things. One thing that came up was prioritizing and addressing chronic absenteeism and overall attendance issues. When the educational partners were presented with our chronic absenteeism rate and our attendance issues, that was one of the things that came out of their input, was prioritizing and addressing that area. Continuing to provide social, emotional, and mental health support services by retaining the level of counselors at each site. That was, I think, every single educational partner meeting, all of the survey information that came back. That was one of the things that was something that was in all those pieces, was this idea of keeping that level of mental health support on sites. And then the other one I wanted to highlight was the more emphasis to promote and implement inclusive practices. That was something that was began developing over the past few years, but really kind of took a strong hold this year in the work that's been done in that area.
Can I just call on that, Will?
Yes, sure.
Oh, no, it sounds like you're gonna get that one. As in the LSCA, one was an interest in tracking student behaviors, and so that was written into the LCAP in terms of continually tracking student behaviors.
That was definitely another one that was that I wanted to highlight. The parent education for families around new curriculum, that was something that came out specifically when gathering input from our DLAC District English Language Advisory Committee meetings and our Parent Advisory Committee meetings and our Special Ed Parent Advisory Committee. That idea of having parent education for families around new curriculum. And then the need for professional development for teachers to support curriculum implementation. There was definitely a concern when we saw that some of our actions were around new adoptions and new programs coming in, and the idea of making sure that our teachers had some training around that before they began and during while they're implementing. Our three goals in the LCAP, which again did not change since for the last couple of years during this cycle. The first goal is around conditions of learning. Second goal was improving academic outcomes for students. And then the third was the improving of emotional wellness and mental health for students, and also climate and engagement. Goal one, again, was conditions of learning, and really can be put into that. This is the entire, what the goal written out, but it's really about providing a high quality staff, making sure that we have instructional materials that are aligned and supported, and then also just the physical safety of our facilities, and making sure that our areas are conducive for learning. Again, you have the document that actually has the proposed LCAP and all of its actions. Again, I'm just going to highlight some of the actions that were put in here. This is goal one again. And the new certificated staff professional development, again, that was something that has been in there, and it was something that I wanted to emphasize, because that's one of the things we will and have had a lot of turnover and of new teachers and new staff coming in, and making sure that they have the tools and the professional development that they can come in and, being supported and prepared. And then the implementation of the science curriculum is another one I wanted to point out, is that very happy that we selected a science curriculum, but the next big challenge is the implementation, and that is even more important than the actual selection of it. Is the only way the science curriculum can be utilized to its most impactful way is for there to be training around it, and then also be able to monitor its implementations. So that's an action. And then the second goal was around student outcomes. Again, this is the academic goal for the core subjects areas of math, English language arts, and English language development. And again, it's around this idea of making informed, data-driven, and instructional decisions. Many of the actions within this goal are around this idea of being able to monitor how our students are the outcomes of our students, monitor through our assessments and through our monitoring benchmark monitoring system, and then be able to act on that data and make adjustments. Provide supports and resources in those areas of need, so those things that come out of that analysis of the data. Some of the actions I want to highlight that are under goal 2 is the PD around universal design for learning. I think we took a very good first start to this universal design for learning, but it's only going to be as effective as if we continue to provide not only professional development, but actually provide evidence of it being utilized within the classroom. So really actionable steps around that. We're very happy to have the support of San Mateo County Office of Education in supporting that effort. But that's one of the actions that I wanted to highlight under 2. Another one is added personnel to support unduplicated students. A lot of this personnel came from the supplemental funds that the sites have decided to use, call them interventions or support teachers. But it's also the being able to support those unduplicated students in particular in those areas, in those content areas. And further, and be able to monitor and see how impactful those supports are within that. And then the implementation of a district-wide phonics program. I personally am very excited about this because it'll be the first time that we will see all of our really K-2 teachers really working together in implementing a phonics program that is consistent across the grade levels. We have right next door to us, we have all the materials ready to be sent out. We're hoping to send them out this next week, but that was an action that really needs to be highlighted because there's an importance again with the idea is we did a great job of selecting the phonics program, but now really the bigger challenge is the implementation of it and making sure it's impactful. The third goal is around engagement. It's supporting the social and mental health of our students and and providing opportunities and to have open discussions around identified issues, and also promoting positive, safe, and supportive school climates. And so that's the actions around goal 3 are around those areas. Again, the actions I want to highlight with here in goal 3 are ones that were added. These were actions that were added. So they're new to this year. One of them being, as I mentioned before, developing inclusive practices. So has been a lot of work around the sites around identifying and defining what inclusion is, but also the idea of developing those inclusive practices based off those identifications of and their definitions of what inclusion is on those particular sites. And then personnel and resources to address attendance and chronic absenteeism. There's a couple of actions that are around that. One being specifically for one of our schools in providing where we have the highest chronic absenteeism rate in our district, but being able to provide a model based off the work we do with that particular school in addressing their chronic absenteeism rate. Again, we are partnering with, or we're getting supports from San Mateo County Office of Education on this, and we're going through a process and to identify what are the root causes of why students are being chronically absent. You'll be surprised it's not always COVID. There's a lot of many other reasons that are occurring for why we're having such a high chronic absenteeism rate at that school and across the district. So So those were two, there's a couple of actions that were added around that. And then the one that Dr. Olson just mentioned about collecting and analyzing disciplinary instances. One of the things that came out of, again, the engagement that we had with our educational partners was this idea, the only way you're going to be able to solve the problem is to identify the problem. And so in being able to identify what are the common or what are some of the behaviors that are consistent across, not just across a specific school, but across the district, and being able to have a collaborative effort in addressing those areas. So it's really a two-part thing. The action is around not only collecting and analyzing, but it's also being accountable for what those behaviors are. So, and that's really kind of a shortened version of the LCAP. The LCAP is actually attached to this item, and I do also want to note that San Mateo County Office of Ed, their LCAP team at the office, has gone through a pretty extensive review of this draft of this LCAP, and they brought back recommendations to our LCAP team, which includes Josie and the cabinet members here. And we've been addressing those mostly compliance related issues, and we'll probably be continuing to address those compliance related issues. But this is the most recent draft. On June 14th, we'll be bringing back the final LCAP for your adoption based off of any input or any discussion that you have from here, and also what San Mateo County Office of Ed feedback that they give us. We'll be addressing their issues too. So do you have any questions, comments, feedback? Yes.
So thank you for the presentation, and thank you for the context of that. As I didn't read the entire LCAP in full detail, I will tell you that, but I did look through the three major goals, the metrics, and the actions that were put through. And one thing that I noticed is for the metrics, especially for goals 1 and 2, over the years, the metrics have been declining. So we have this really lofty goal, and the metrics are going in kind of the opposite direction of what the goal would imply for year 3, like year 1, year 2, declining across the board. And so having such a lofty goal to me implies having a pretty massive shift in the way that things are done in each of those goal areas in terms of the actions we take. And then as I read through the actions, it read almost like iterative changes, like, improvements here, improvements there. But when I look at those actions, I guess I'm worried that those actions may not be big enough to shift the trajectory to hit the goals that the district has set out across goal 1, 2, and 3. And so I think that's where I'd love any feedback on, like, are there kind of opportunities to kind of think about larger actions that the district can take, or whoever can take to reach those goals? Because I'm worried that the goal, the actions don't match our goal. Our goal is like here. Our actions, I think, feel like get us to here. As opposed to the goal.
Yeah, that's a good question. In fact, it came up in the meetings with the educational partners, especially the first series of meetings, because we just reviewed the data and we looked at our outcomes and our expected outcomes and our goals for there. So there's two parts to that. There's one part is some of the metrics, quite honestly, were way too dreamy to try to reach those actual plateaus, right? The second thing is, when this thing was written, we were really kind of discovering the idea of what the effects of the pandemic would be, especially in the academic range. And, we weren't completely shocked by it, but we were, wow, this is, pre-pandemic, we were getting this percentage of students that were at or above standard, and now it was a major drop. So part of those expectations or the goals that were set. And the first piece is that they were set too lofty, with the understanding that if we want to get to that eventually, we probably within 3 years should have maybe tapered the expectation to where we wanted to be. So that's one thing. The second thing is, and again, this is part of this compliance piece, and is that there was an ask, why can't we change the metric? Meaning what our desired outcome for after year 3 would be. Can't we taper that down? We were encouraged by San Mateo County and going through the LCAP process and protocols to not change that outcome, to continue for that to be a goal. So that brings to what your second point was about the actions, like creating these brand, like creating some more impactful actions that can get us to reach that area sooner. So that was one of the struggles going through there, and in identifying what those actions were. The other piece about it, which is a bit secondary but does have an impact on it, is many of the actions that were proposed or could be proposed needed funding to be attached to it. So for instance, there was this big push for this idea of having more content experts, meaning not only just analyzing the data and seeing where it was, but actually thinking about specific strategies within a content area and having experts be able to drive that. Because we don't, specialists would have been great in that part, is like identifying it, and then a specialist in a content area would be able to say, okay, this is what you want to do, this is how we need to go about doing it, and this is what I can lead and support in making that happen, not just from a district level, but out at sites. So part of it, a little bit secondary, is this idea that the funding for these grand actions that we would want to take would need to be in place to allow that to work.
Or said differently, perhaps funding needs to be prioritized for some of these grand actions. And if I might jump in, Will. So I've heard the specialist one, an example of that as an idea multiple times, which, I think is a really great idea. I guess I'm just wondering if we have other ideas to really make, like, I actually wouldn't suggest that we lower the metric, because our students deserve us kind of reaching for really high goals. But I think coming up with actions that help us really rethink the way that we're supporting students, because I guess my point is a lofty change requires lofty actions, and that could mean restructuring things so all students are getting more intervention time, or whatever it is. I don't know what the exact actions should be, but I guess that's what I'm curious about. How are we building in that level of like lofty actions, strong actions to meet the strong needs that we have next year? Because I worry that just constant incrementals are potentially going to keep our trend line going the way that they are, versus making that dramatic shift that we want to see.
Yeah. And it's not that we haven't tried. We haven't done different things, like we have looked within to try to support. We have teachers who, like, for instance, I'll give you an example. There's a teacher who's an expert at Teachers College, an expert not only just in the curriculum, but also in the interventions and the supports and the changes. And she continues to keep up and go to trainings around that. So for our new teachers, and for a group of teachers that were really kind of struggling with that process about how to support those students that were on the fringe or not supporting it, they were able to have time with her where she was able to actually take them through a process to change their practice within the classroom, change their way they approach interventions with students and within reading. So there has been things that have been tried within that are more grand than, but it's really, we can't get around this idea that we would have to, if we're going to prioritize, we'd have to really prioritize how funding is spent all over.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
I think I would start with what are our grand ideas and what are the resources required to fund those? And I think what I'm trying to communicate is I'm not sure I see a bunch of grand ideas. Funding is certainly the next step. You can't, you can't execute them. But it feels like to really change that trajectory. I mean, in the LCAP, those numbers did scare me a little bit across the board of it's not going slowly in the direction we want, it's going in the opposite direction we want. Yeah. And so that requires just a rethink of how we support students during the school day and how they spend their time in the school day so that trajectory changes. So that's one comment.
Go ahead. Oh, I was going to say that I did attend the LCAP review, which was mentioned, and a lot of things were captured in there. So thank you. I do want to mention, because actually a teacher actually brought up the absenteeism and that it's unclear to parents when it is that you should keep your child now home. And then actually I read in a Sunset Ridge letter, they were really clear. If your student has a temperature of 101, or they have, I'm not a doctor, and but that seemed really clear to me as a parent as to when to send your kids to school. So I wanted to just put that out there. I know that we're, 7 days from the end of school, so people are trying to think about missing, but so anyway, I wanted to just say that. I also noted that there was the teachers also, you mentioned it, but they were concerned that the reporting of incidents weren't actually being reported. And that's something that's sort of been a pet peeve of mine since I've been on the board, is just that there needs to just be documentation when we have an incident, no matter where it is in our district. If it's not written down, then how can we go back and fix it, or know that that we've got a problem that's actually continuing through the year, not just a one-time incident. So I just think that's something that's important that we sort of hone in on. There was some concern about the testing and having iReady and the state testing on top of each other. That was a problem, but we had just discussed that it was sort of a one-time issue this year that I think iReady came out a little later maybe, and that's why they were on top of each other this year.
We extended the deadline, but we consistently extend the deadline. So next year, no extending of deadlines.
So there was
there's got to be a certain gap between the first diagnostic and the second diagnostic. I think one of the biggest successes this year was that the teachers got together and they got to look at their data and look at what they're going to do differently in class based off the data that they saw. But they had to have those meetings after the first diagnostic and after the second diagnostic, so everything kind of got pushed back. But one of the things that I've already been in discussion with iReady is, can I have a definitive 2-week, 3-week where that window is by itself, and then the cast testing can be by itself, not that they're overlapping. I think that was a big learning point for me, was that we can't overlap them, because then it comes off like they're testing all the time.
Right.
Where they're technically, if they were doing them separately, then the amount of testing would feel less.
Yeah, and I did want to say the teachers actually really did like the PD day around iReady. They felt it was very helpful to their teaching. So whatever we did around that, I think we should continue, because there was really good feedback around it. The other thing was just, it's come up and is just a sort of in an effort to have individuality at all of our schools. We got a little bit away from making sure that we're all teaching the same curriculum on the same path. So again, just making sure that everyone is on the same page across the district, so that we're not having something special happening over here that's not happening at another place. And so that they were reiterating that that's important and that is something that's happening in our district.
Can I jump in and just say that just pulling Needy's comment from the math presentation was around what practices are consistent across schools, right? Like, what are our signature practices or our key practices? And we would be hard pressed to identify any of those right now, but that would be a really important piece of instructional improvement.
Okay. And then just the last part as the sort of wanting to pull everyone together, at least at some point during the LCAP. The teachers that were in the room were sort of feeling like they're in an island by themselves and not even able to connect with other voices. I know we had talked about that, but maybe it's at least once or twice a year that we're sort of checking in, pulling everyone together so they're feeling they're hearing each other. So that, which is some feedback I had. I want to make sure the board heard. So that's that. And any other questions?
Well, you kind of answered some of my questions. I was wondering what the teachers' suggestions were during the last meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, with the second meeting, the second one with we did the second one, we did LSCA and CSCA together. Some of the things that stated, one of the things that's a challenge that was brought up there, and I don't know if you remember this, Linda, was this idea of having time. So it's either having time during the week to actually have opportunities for collaboration. And throughout the LCAP, it's littered all over the LCAP about this collaboration, because of our experience with the iReady, the two iReady set. They felt like the best part of that was not just that it was an iReady person there that could kind of show them how to use the tool, but that they were able to collaborate with each other on resources and tools and groupings and changing of instructional practice and stuff like that. So that was one of the things was we need time, and then we need to be able to get together. So being able to do that, and I think it's doable. I think we could do that. The other big piece, and this wasn't mentioned anywhere, but what I was feeling from it is that the actual writing of the LCAP needs to be a team effort. It cannot be, I get all the input and I put it all in, right? It's got to be a team effort. It can't be just done by one or a few people. There has to be a total team effort. And I've already been researching with other districts about how they do that. So I've got some ideas, and I'm hoping that we can propose that, which would include a time where all of our educational partners can come together at least once and be able to develop actions. And because we're going to be going into a new cycle, we'll still have the review of this LCAP. That'll be the first set of meetings. The second set of meetings next time will be a totally new LCAP. It'll be like, we're starting with, do we want these goals? Do we want to change the goals? What are the actions that we want connected to these goals, and so on? So it's going to be a totally new process. Probably going to take a little more time, but I'd like it to be done in a team effort and not just a loosey effort. Like as far as the writing part of it, Right.
And it kind of seems that, having the teachers' input from every school, would be helpful. So maybe they could help you. I mean, I think that they're willing, just so that you're not overwhelmed with that.
Yeah. Well, we did have in the parent group, within the CSCA and LCA, I think we had a representative from every school there. So that was positive in that case. But thank you for that. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, so we are going to take you guys, do you want to take a quick break, or do we want to go through one more item?
I think the next one is connected, but it's also very long. So I think we probably should take our break now. Jordan, if you wouldn't mind turning off the camera and the sound, that would be great.
Yeah, so let's come back at 9:10.
9:10. Okay. Nice connection.
Yes, thank you guys.
Will is going to bring the presentation up. And tonight I'm going to give you a brief update on the state budget as Governor Newsom adopted this May revision, and then we'll show you how that pertains to Pacifica School District. So we can go ahead and move forward. The first part of the presentation is kind of an update on the state budget and economic update. Go ahead and move forward. Hopefully I'll be able to talk through this presentation. Okay, go ahead, Will. So some of the things from the governor's May revision, Governor Newsom is attempting to kind of rebalance the budget. We all knew in January when he adopted the January proposal that he was too overly optimistic. As soon as he adopted the January proposal, there was a lot of talk about the state revenues not coming in. So in May, he does acknowledge that. He does recognize there's over $31.5 billion in state shortfall. And, despite all of these uncertainties, he's really working hard to protect the LCFF funding, the main source of funding for schools in Pacifica School District. There's additional things that he could have, activated in May, but he didn't. And you'll remember the times when there were state deferrals, and reserve withdrawals. Sometimes there was deficits to the COLAs. He has not gone in that direction at this time. He's really trying to protect the LCFF funding, but there are some one-time funds that I'll show you he's cutting. So go ahead and go forward. So this is just a slide so you can see, what the LCFF funding was in January and then the May revision. The main difference, what you see a decline, is because of the universal pre-K TK program expansion. And it's really due to lower enrollment. And then you can see the COLA was 8.13% and it's up to 8.22%. And then the reductions that he's proposing is in January. There was the arts, music, and instructional materials discretionary block grant that we did receive this year. In January, he proposed to cut it by 30%. Now he's proposing 50% reduction in those funds. And then this is a big one for us, and I'll demonstrate that later on in the presentation. The Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant. In January, there was no reduction, and now he's proposing a $2.5 billion reduction to those funds. And these are this year's funds that we're receiving this year, planning for and spending over the next, this year and the next few years. So go ahead and go forward. So this is just the same slide you've seen before, just kind of the LCFF funding is really based on the students, their grade level, and it shows you how much you receive by grade level. For example, kindergartner is $9,166 per student. And then you can see how much the COLA is. And then there's also grade span adjustments, which is for class size reduction for kindergarten through third grade. And also in high school, there's some additional funding. And then there's the supplemental funding, which we talk a lot about in our LCAP. That's the 20% amount where if you reach that 20% amount for the unduplicated students, and those are the students of need, the English learner students, the foster youth, and the homeless students. And there's additional funding for that if there's more than 20%. Our district is hovering in the 22 to 23% range. And if you did have a higher level of those students, up to 65%, like some of our neighboring school districts, you would receive additional funding. We don't qualify for that funding. But this is the chart that shows you his amount funding per student. So go ahead and go forward. So the Prop 98 problem, we knew there was a problem in January, and of course it got much worse in May, 3.1 billion. And this chart just demonstrates the difference between the changes in the revenues and the changes in expenditures. So there's a sharp decrease in revenues and also an increase in the obligations the state has to fund. And go ahead and go forward. So this is just kind of a little summary of the state budget right now. It's very volatile. You know, the tax system, there's been a decline in the S&P due to high income earners. Revenues have softened since he made his budget proposal in January. We still don't know the exact revenue numbers for this year. The delay in the corporate income tax has also mean there's a delay in revenues for this year. Of course, you all know about the interest rate hikes and inflation. And the next chart kind of summarizes it. If you go ahead and go forward, they kind of say we're balancing on the head of a pin right now. And these are all the reasons why. It's supply chain issues, which we've experienced in our programs, financial crisis, if the stock rebound, all of these things could alter the way the budget goes when he adopts his final budget. Interest rates, unemployment. So it's just kind of a quick snapshot of the risks to the budget. They say this is the riskiest budget in a decade. So that's something that we're very concerned about as we present our budget numbers and as we move forward after June. So go ahead and move forward. So that was just really overview of the state. Now we're going to go into the Pacifica School District budget. So the next slide. So, of course, the governor cannot pass his budget alone. It's going to go through the assembly and the state. Everyone's going to weigh in. Our budget is going to be based on the May revise because we have to adopt our budget before the end of our school year. And the state budget, most of the time, is not yet completed when we're adopting our budget. So when the final state budget is adopted, we will make our changes and present those to you in our first interim report in November. So go ahead and go forward. So the objective, this budget contains a very detailed budget. There's the full package, which is in the state software, and then multi-year projections. And what we're looking at is the board is going to, on June 14th, determine a certification for the Pacifica School District budget. Just to review, a positive budget means you're going to be able to meet your financial obligations for the current year and 2 subsequent years. That's what we're presenting to you tonight. Qualified means that you may not, you can meet in the current year, but you may not meet in the 2 subsequent years. And I'll show you that in our multi-year analysis. And then negative means that you cannot meet your financial obligations in the current year. So we are, asking the board to file for a positive status at this time, and I'll go through that with you. It is something that I'm concerned about. There was, before COVID, a time we did file a qualified budget. And with all the COVID relief funds, it brought us out of that qualified status. So this is a big concern for us as we move forward to first interim, and you'll see that as I go through the numbers. So go ahead and move forward. Just kind of a summary of the assumptions, what the COLA is for 23-24, 24-25, and 25-26. They say it's kind of a dartboard. School Services presents this, and we don't really know what the COLA is going to be in those 2 out years, but we're going to use these assumptions for this budget as we move forward. Our funded ADA is still very, very low. We're still using a rolling 3-year average. If we were to increase that, we wouldn't use that average. We would use the higher number, but we're using 2,746 for this budget. We are getting $1.3 million in supplemental funds. And those are the funds designated for the English learners, the free and reduced students, and the foster youth and homeless. And so we're at 23.03% in that category. And so one of the things we're going to look at is making a big push as we enter the new school year to make sure we identify all of those students properly. So go ahead and go forward. Just kind of a review. I know we don't have very many people here, but I like to keep this slide up for, so we can understand how the local control funding formula works. It's complicated. You saw how it's based on the students who are in their seats and what grade level. There's a difficulty here in San Mateo County is if your property tax base is more than what those funds generate, those districts get more money. And so actually, if you just go to the next slide, Will, it's the bucket slide. I think this explains it best. So Pacifica School District has always been LCFF funded. That's the first bucket. Whatever we generate from the students that are attending school is not, our property taxes have never been more than that. Right now, we're receiving 0% property taxes because of the way San Mateo County, San Mateo County distributes property taxes. There is a negative account called ERAF. And so right now, our property taxes for the last 3 years have been 0. So we're very far away from being a basic aid or community funded school district. When you look at the second bucket, that's where a school district receives so much property taxes they're not getting any funding from the state in the LCFF category. And then they receive more than that, they get to keep that. So in San Mateo County, Pacifica is the lowest funded. We're still LCFF, and many of our surrounding districts are community funded. And that's why we struggle so hard to be able to offer that higher compensation and to do the things that we want to do in our LCAP. It all comes down to the funding priorities. So that is a good discussion that you guys were having with the LCAP, is how do we fund our goals? So go ahead and go forward. So these are the issues we see right now, or these are things that are not yet included in this budget because we were just told don't include it at this time. And that's Prop 28. The voters just approved these funds last November. This is directly for the schools to fund arts, music, and programs. And Pacifica's estimated to receive about $350,000. It's not in the budget right now because when we were at the conference, this is one of the areas that he was cutting the numbers, so we don't know what our numbers are. So we will add these in at first interim once his final budget passes and we know what it is. This is special education funds from President Biden's request. This is really good news if this goes through. He's asking for $18.2 billion at the federal level. However, we wouldn't know that until the federal budget passes. And so if we have that information at first interim, we would be able to add that in. That would really help the Pacifica School District budget. So go ahead and go forward. These are just expenditure assumptions, some of the bigger items that we use in building our budget. So CalSTRS is the teacher's retirement. There's no change. The district contributes 19.1% of a teacher's salary into the retirement system. CalPERS is for classified employees, and there is an increase of 1.31%. So almost 27% of a classified employee's salary goes into the retirement system. So that's a costly benefit for employers. In addition to the other payroll costs, that is one of the biggest ones. And then employee step and column. The way our salary schedules work is every year employees move up on the salary schedule. There are some gap years where they stay stagnant for maybe a couple years, like on a teacher's salary schedule. But for the most part, there is a step and column increase for employees. So those assumptions are built into the budget. Certificated is just over 200,000, classified 70,000 a year. And this could be offset by attrition. We don't know all of our retirements or departures at this time. So when our final staffing is known in September, October, we will have a better idea if those numbers are offset by some attrition. And then health benefits, CalPERS doesn't publish their rates until June. So we build in a 5% increase, not knowing exactly what it is. Now that increase would take effect in January. So we would have all that information again closer to the first interim report. So right now there's an increase built in of about 250,000. The vision and dental, those programs have been running very efficiently at our insurance level. I guess it's because of COVID, a lot of people didn't use those services. So there's a surplus in that account. And so they did not propose any increase at this time. Now, the area that we have issues are the next three areas is our insurance. We've had a lot of insurance claims these last few years. So our property and liability is going up by 18% this year. And then workers' comp, our district was one of the higher ones when it came to workers' comp increase. It's 7% of our total salaries is increasing because of workers' comp, industrial injury claims. Another area that I think we can do some work on next year is our operations. Our utilities and garbage increases really went up with the COVID. You know, we kept all of our doors and windows open, and we still do. And we keep the heater on and we keep the air purifier on. So I think there's some areas where we can look into maybe some budget savings next year, but right now we're including those increases as assumptions until it changes. So go ahead and go forward. So then this one just lists the uncertainties in the state budget and kind of talked about that. We're waiting for June. We don't know the exact amount of supplemental funding. The discretionary funds for arts and music for our district is $870,000. So they paid us $870,000, and now they're not going to either they're not going to pay us the difference, or we're going to have to pay it back if he cuts it by 50%. The learning recovery by 30% is $460,000 for our school district. And when you remember the LCAP Goal 1, that was one of the priorities in the stakeholder meetings, was the counseling, having an increased level of counseling for our district. That learning recovery is where we have, we're paying for those additional counselors. So that is troubling if they cut that by 30% or even more in the final state budget. And then Prop 28, I just put a question mark because we don't know what those amounts are going to be. And those are the funds directly allocated to school sites. So dartboard projections, they just call them dartboard projections because we just don't know at this time. We're just using the best information we have for enrollment, attendance, staffing, and the amount of money we're spending on special education and deferred maintenance. So go ahead and go forward. So I put this together as a very, very summarized multi-year. This includes the total general fund revenues, and it's broken out by the different categories, and then total expenditures. The troubling thing here, and you'll see it more in more detail on the next chart, is that in 24-25, we don't meet our 3% in the general fund unless we transfer $170,000 from Fund 17. And then in the next year, we don't meet the 3% unless we transfer another $500,000. So if you can go forward, I think that next chart, it's a lot of detail. You might not be able to see it clearly. I don't know if you can make it bigger or this one has the estimated actuals in the first column. And what we try to do here is really hone in on our expenditures for this year and make them as close to reality as possible. So compared to second interim, it looks a little bit better as far as our ending fund balance. It's just under 7% reserve. So it's unrestricted, restricted, and combined. And then the second year is the current budget we're asking you to adopt, and we're deficit spending. But then when you go to the third and fourth year, we are continuing to deficit spend, and we don't have 3% in the general fund, so we start transferring money from Fund 17. And you can see that midway through the chart in green. There's 170,000 in the third year and 500,000 in the fourth year on this chart. We're just over 3%, and that includes Fund 17. So it's a lot of detail on here, but in summary, we are, deficit spending, and our reserves are going down. So the other thing about this analysis is it does not include employee compensation. We want to be able to pay our employees salary increases, but we can't build it in until we know the actual numbers, the actual staffing, and if we can maintain 3% in that third year. So I'm seeing a lot of, do the people have questions about this? It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. I apologize. It's a lot of detail here, and I'm trying to, talk about it in a summary way.
One thing that's always surprised me when I got on the board, and I guess I sort of had an idea, but that it was we're dealing with funny money until next year. This is sort of a random question, but has it ever been aligned in a way where we actually were said that you have this money now, go make a budget, or has it always been the reverse?
I think in good years, I've been here in good years where the state budget is pretty in line, but we're going through tough times right now. I mean, we don't know what the state revenues are. He's cutting things he's already given us, and it could be worse in June. So I mean, this is really our best guess right now. Is that kind of?
Yeah, no, it really puts us at a disadvantage, especially a district that's so strapped for money. If we make an estimation that's not right, I mean, we could really be in a bad place.
Yeah, I was going to say what other districts have as protection is a good 17 to 20% reserve. What we have, as you can see,
Right. That's exactly what it is. You're exactly right. And that's the difficulty for Pacifica, because we wanted to offer compensation and go into the new school year with our salary settlements, but we can't because we don't have a reserve to fall back on. Go ahead.
Fund 17, what is that fund?
So Fund 17 is a special reserve fund board designated. And Pacifica put money into that fund many, many years ago when Portola School was annexed from the Pacifica School District. It generated a large amount of ADA for 1 year because you always use your prior year ADA. It generated over $1 million. And so that money was put into Fund 17 Special Reserve, can only be spent by the board by transferring it from Fund 17 into the general fund. Over the years, it was spent on settlements, unanticipated costs, so the balance is down to like 800,000, something like that. But it's a special reserve fund.
And so the only money that's gone into that was the Portola fund in the beginning. What other funds would go into that? Nothing.
So that's a great question. If you had surplus in years and you're above your reserves, the board could say, let's keep a 6% reserve. So let's always keep 3% in Fund 17 and let's keep 3% here, or let's keep a higher reserve. And you would make that determination at the time when you have those funds to talk about.
And the additional funding from COVID, that boosted the reserves for a time period, and we're motion a little bit later around the excess in reserves. That funding is now, I mean, you're showing that it gets depleted.
Yes.
Yeah.
But by deficit spending.
Yeah. And then what is the current ADA?
It's the 2,700 something that was on that first.
Okay, that was the rolling 3 year.
Oh, that's the average. Yeah, I'll have to look up the actual for this year.
What the difference would be if we had actually used our annual one. And then how long can you use rolling ADA? So did you use rolling the same ADA for the next 2 years?
Currently, that's what the state calculator has. Okay. So we use what the FICMAT calculator is. So until that changes, that's what we're using.
So if that same 2,700 is assumed.
Well, based on a little bit of fluctuation in enrollment, the TK is going to go up a little bit.
And then just one other quick question on the so you assume an increase of 5% in health and welfare benefits, even though we're assuming salaries go down. So the per unit price you're assuming goes up by 5%. But the overall budget would, right? Or the overall expenditure would.
Yeah, it's not exact because the way the budget works is we take all the positions, roll them into the next year, and they're all attached to benefits, whether they're vacant or, a person is there. And so as that changes, that 5% is not exact whether it's an employee or, if there's more employees or less employees. And then as people change their packages from single to, but it's not exact, but 5% is the number we used when we rolled it.
Got it. Because I was just curious, in the salaries for certificate and classified, they seem, at least for next year's budget, they seem roughly flat or slightly down, but roughly flat. But then there was an increase in health and welfare benefits. So I was just curious about why that one went up when the salary. You would think it's linked to the salary.
Exactly. And a lot of the decline is some of the there was a lot of one-time funds spent from the ESSER and year funds and like stipends. Those types of one-time funds were eliminated.
And then next question is, given the funding constraints that you've walked us through, especially for the coming years, how is the district thinking about looking at a systematic way to find grant funding or other sources of funding that can supplement state and federal funds?
So it's a good question. I mean, PEP is a great partner. Our parcel tax is another area that's funding teacher salaries, counseling, some of our science library things. So I think that's another area we need to look at because that's going to sunset in 2022. So, and then grants, we have, sometimes it's difficult to qualify because we're not quite at that low socioeconomically, like that percentage. We're at 23%. We look at some of the things in some areas and we don't qualify. So that's a tough one, but we don't have a grant writer. It would, that would be like a wish list, just to have somebody who could go out and search grants. But that would be another area that we haven't tapped into.
The San Mateo County Office of Ed, they send out stuff, and also what's that subscription? we're all in. They have always a listing almost every single month of grants that are available out there. I'm always looking at those for the educational part grants, but it's like you said, you've got to be at 80% free and reduced, or you've got, like there's always something that we just don't qualify for, or you have to be a district of 6,000 students or larger, or, or whatever. So we're constantly looking at that, but San Mateo County is always very good. I mean, all these one-time grants have come through because we've been informed by San Mateo County. Yeah, you can get in on this or apply for this. So it's not that we're missing things. I don't think we may be, but
yeah, it's tough because, like he said, they're competitive. We don't meet the thresholds for a lot of them.
And we were, well, just follow up on that. Is there a way to kind of ask for volunteers to support? And I'm just thinking back of, I think it was Cabrillo that had gotten a grant for their gardeners.
There's sustainability there, the behavior, I think.
So things like that, I mean, they're supplemental, but these are the things that typically get cut if funding doesn't come from the state and what have you. And so I wonder how we can empower our school communities to also let, use parent volunteers to spend that time to look for, identify, which it sounds like Cabrillo did. Can we, kind of expand that as a key goal?
Yeah, that would be a good resource for us.
Yeah, I remember Ortega also did that because I was one of the people. We went to San Francisco. I can't remember the name. I think it was One or something like that. It's a nonprofit where they have the whole gamut of yours what is out there. And we, came with the problem that I think we were 14% or 16%, and we just could never get the threshold of need. I mean, we're just like all of our parents are working, and we get punished for it. But I have a question about President Biden's $18.2 billion. How would that help us? Like, where would that help us?
So he's targeting the federal IDEA, Individuals with Disability Education Act. And so right now, that's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up because I should have mentioned that. It's severely underfunded right now. That's how we pay for all of our paraeducational and staff right now. And we're making it, I don't have the exact number, but we're using more general fund money to pay for those positions than federal or state special ed funding. So that's another category that could really help us, is because special education is so severely underfunded. And there was an article even school services posted, like, has it helped? Has all this extra funding for special education helped? And it really hasn't, because of the amount of need that the students have right now. Our percentage, I think, has gone up to like 16. What is it? 16%. The needs are so high right now that even the GEARS funding and the extra funding they've given us hasn't helped. We're still contributing, and that number is like 2/3 of the way down. It says contribution. It goes from 6.8 million to 6.9 to 7 million to 7.1 million in the multi-year. It's a little misleading because we absorbed some of those increases in the general fund when we did the second interim report. And we also absorbed a lot of those special ed increases in the one-time funds that we have, like learning recovery. So that's an excellent question. That's where that would help us. It would help serve those students, and then we would contribute less money from the general fund.
And then is there also a way maybe with wherever you can get the most precise is how much are we paying in settlements and in the school year? So, for example, a comparison from last year to this year.
Yeah, we have that. We have a special account code that is just for settlements. And so we code the settlements to that category, whether it's RSP or general special ed. It's a little misleading sometimes because some of the settlements are not just paying the parents to go their tuition or the lawyers. Some of the settlements are that we pay for the non-public school. And so that would be coded a little separately. I don't know if there's a better tracking system, but it's the way the settlements go. We don't have exact figures, but we do have numbers from year to year.
I think that would just be a good goal to set, to improve that area a little bit. If we could see the numbers.
Also, it'll be in mind a huge and a significant increase in the amount of students needing non-public school placements. So like Josie was talking about, the needs are just have grown. So I mean, like 6 more than we had last school year at this point. So that's very significant.
Yeah, and I think also there's no in between where it used to be district program, county program, non-public school. The county program hasn't. I talked to other people.
Shrunk.
Yeah.
To not have very many options. So it's kind of non-public school when you need that next level of placement. I mean, chances are so slim that we're going to make a placement in the county.
Yeah, and so you're paying higher transportation, higher costs because you're sending them someplace else. So that's another area.
Good questions.
Very good questions.
I just have one question real quick back to the grants. Did we ever have an employee that did that in the district?
There was, like, when I first came here, and he was a part-time grant writer. And I think his position was grant funded, and the grant funded went away. He went away.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
But it was like a part-time person.
Okay.
Those are good questions. So yeah, just this is a very complicated sheet, but it really just demonstrates really the deficit spending and using Fund 17 and just having really low reserve percentages where we just don't have that cushion to fall back on. So it is, we'll have to see how things go at first interim. I'm really worried that we could be qualified if things don't change. So you want to go to the next slide, Will? So here's the slide of our reserves. And you can see it just kind of breaks it down in more detail because I guess the next item is also about reserves. But where our unrestricted reserve balance is in dollars, what's Fund 17, and you can see that number declining. So total reserves. And the way they calculate the reserve percentages, they take your reserves, your unrestricted reserves, and divide it by your total general fund expenditures. So that number has also gone up over the years and making that the reserve percentages come out lower. And again, it's prior to employee compensation increases. There's nothing built in for salary increases at this time. So 3.44% is what we're looking at right now in the third year. So go ahead and go forward. And then, I don't have to go through this, but this is just all the reasons why we need to maintain healthier reserves. All these unexpected things could happen. So go ahead and move forward. Again, we're proposing to self-certify as positive. This is the best information we have at this time, and a lot could change between now and, in June and then even August when our staffing is complete. Go ahead and go forward. So next steps, again, we're waiting for the final state budget. We're going to ask the board to adopt the budget on June 14th. We hope to have all our final staffing and enrollment, and the first interim will be in November. And then go forward. Any more questions or comments? There's a lot in the package. This was just a very overview summary of what's in the package.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next is Josie Peterson.
Just in time for our 7:55 public hearing.
Yes,
exactly. So again, this is a state requirement that came into effect in 1516, and there was when districts had too much reserves. So we're required to just show what the minimum reserve is, and when we have more money in the unrestricted general fund than 3%, we need to show what those funds are and how they're being used. So the next 3 sheets just show what is Pacifica's reserve in each year, and then how much is in Fund 17, because you count that as well, and then what are you doing with those funds? And so what we're doing currently with those funds is the reserve is to cover operational increases in the coming years and any employee compensation. And each one of these sheets demonstrates the same thing, is that we're going to use these reserves to cover operating deficits and any employee compensation. And so this is really a requirement anytime you have more than the designated reserve to have a public hearing on reserves in excess of the state minimum. And it's not even an action item, it's just a requirement to present this item.
Any questions?
Okay, next item. This is resolution number 2023-05-31-0.
Okay, so this is an action item, and it's really pro forma. It's a routine item at the end of every school year. We ask the board to authorize us to move funds in between categories, and I can give you examples like we budgeted to spend a certain amount of money in supplies, however, we spend them in technology. So what we do to close the books here in the business office is we move the budget in between those categories to make sure there are no negatives. And like one of the categories we are moving is like utilities. We spent a lot more in gas than we had anticipated. So we take money out of the supply category and move it into that category. And so we're asking the board to authorize this resolution, which would be forwarded to the County Office of Education so that we can make those changes before we close the books.
All right, are there any questions? All right, do I have a motion to pass the resolution number 2023-05-31-0, budgetary increases and transfers at end or year end?
A motion.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay.
Those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes. There's your.
Right, next is resolution number 2023-05-31-B, education protection account.
Okay, thank you. This is another requirement at year end, a resolution. And so back in 2012, when Prop 30 was passed, this was the time when the state was having like state deferrals, and when they were having financial issues, they wouldn't pay school districts. And so Prop 30 was passed in order to establish a fund designated to pay school districts. So a portion of our LCFF, it's not more money, it's just part of our LCFF funds are designated as EPA, Education Protection Account funds. And those funds are guaranteed to be paid to us quarterly. And so this is just a resolution stating, you know, I think it's in the back here, there's a sheet that shows how are you spending those funds. And we're spending all of those funds on instruction. And so we're required to demonstrate how much we spent in 22-23 was $7.6 million in the instructional program. And then in 23-24, it's about $7.8 million is the current estimate. And it's required that we demonstrate that, and then we post this on our website showing how we spent the funds. Any questions?
Just a quick question. Are there restrictions on what you can spend the EPA funds on?
It really should be on instructional program. Okay. Is where you want to have the funds spent, and so it's really on all of our instructional program. It should not be spent here in like the district office, or that's a great question.
Great, any other questions? Okay, do I have a motion to approve resolution 2023-05-31-B?
A motion.
And do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes.
All right, moving on to teaching and learning, special education instructor.
All right, thank you so much. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Dr. Olson. Tonight I'll be presenting this special education update. This is actually a presentation we had at a prior board meeting that got pushed to this board meeting. So this was before Trustee Patel asked for the instruction to be embedded. We embedded instruction a couple of slides into this presentation. So we'll get started. And the overview, we're going to look at data, we're going to look at trends and implications. Some of our the progress that we've made in terms of the school services study and recommendations, and then next steps moving forward. This graphic I just included because I really like it. Most of the graphics you see for least restrictive environments start at where the student's eligible for special education. I just happen to like this one because it also goes to the left before a student becomes eligible as being part of that student's least restrictive environment. So you can see there's a checkpoint there where they become eligible. And then within that segment are all of like kind of the placements within special education. So that was a good graphic to include. Next slide. Looking at our student data. So this is what we were referring to with kind of our increase in students being eligible. This is actually as of when the presentation was done. I believe that was a couple of months ago, where we had 452 students eligible. That includes 60 pending cases. And so the way that our system does it, it makes all pending cases eligible while they're in process. So those are students that were in the testing process. Right now, just so you know, that it's at 471 with 57 pending. So just in those couple of months, we've had even more. Comparatively, you can see 2022, 2021, and the numbers of eligible students, just for comparison's sake. Numbers wise as well, we have currently 72 students in our specialized program, our special day class. Special day classes, we have 11 across the district. They're not at every school. So there's that number of those students. And then, as I was saying before during Josie's presentation, 10 students in non-public schools. We had 4 during the 21-22 school year. So, those are expensive placements, and to have a difference of 6 is quite significant. This also Josie was talking about the financial part, but what we're going to look at are on the next slide are trends and implications of what these numbers mean and kind of what's happening here. So we have the increased students being referred and found eligible for special education throughout the last 2 school years. So that's a sharp increase. And then we talked about the non-public school placement. When you see a difference like that of students needing that very intensive and restrictive setting, that really tells you that needs are increasing. Students are really encountering significant difficulties, and they are needing really intensive placements. Interestingly enough, our special day class numbers have remained relatively similar from year to year. We haven't seen a big increase in the number of students that we're taking from our students that are getting resource support and putting them into our own special day classes. So that was an interesting data point for me. And then the referrals and students eligible has made us had to add staff that we hadn't budgeted for during the school year. So there's a list of the staff that we've had to add just to take care of the assessments that have been coming in and students becoming eligible. So then the services that need to be provided. So on the next couple of slides, we're going to talk kind of programmatically. So you remember that school services did that excellent deep dive on our special education program, a great presentation. We had those 4 main sections for the recommendations. And we have implemented many of their recommendations, and others are in progress. So we'll talk about kind of what we're doing within those sections moving forward. This is really just directly related to that school services study. So under that organizational structure and effectiveness, we wasted absolutely no time in adding a coordinator of special education. Thank you again. That was approved last school year, so we were able to add Betsy Belkin. This year, we've had more targeted staff meetings, more intentional professional development, and we've had our staff meetings. We've cut them in half, and we've allowed for job light groups among our special ed staff from different schools. So we set that up so they can collaborate on a monthly basis. In process, and again, these are those recommendations that they had. This is a big one, is development and communication of all of the process policies and procedures for adding services, making placements, et cetera, et cetera. We're working on this. We do have lots of processes in place. We have some difficulties with them all being followed. We can do a better job of making them more concise and getting them more in so people understand them and it's kind of a central place. So we're working on that. So special education cost drivers on the right-hand side of that slide. So this really is about, I interpret this as how can we, kind of combat this amount of students being referred. This is where they recommended inclusive practices and kind of developing that. That was already in our planning. As you know, we've been working with changing perspectives this school year. We'll talk about it as far as the LCAP, making really good progress with our inclusive practices. Each site has developed a inclusion vision statement. They've shared that vision statement with their staff, and they've identified inclusion goals that they want to work on, either that they've already been working on this year and that they want to continue for next year. So that's really good foundational work in inclusive practices, and I really think we can take it to the next level next year. And in process, our MTSS work, our UDL work, you can see we were going to do the PD on April 10th, so I have that in there. All of these pieces really can help students before they might have to be referred for special education. It's about intervening early. It's about changing our approach to how we're teaching, and we're well underway with that learning. And then the SST process. This is probably the one we're furthest away on getting a consistent student study team process across all schools. Kind of the approach, the philosophy, the forms, like getting it really unified and consistent is a goal for us moving forward. Last two areas, staffing and IEP compliance. We have obviously our raise and our stipend for our special educators. We have our partnership with San Francisco State University for the credentialing. There's a bridge credential opportunity where if people got their credential before 2022, when some of the pieces changed, they can attend a quick course and kind of get up to speed with that. So that's actually really, really good for them. And then IEP compliance. Really, this has been a lot of boots on the ground with Betsy in schools with IEP teams at IEP meetings. We have, special education is so massive. You kind of have to pick. You kind of have to go in on one or two or three really specific areas, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to really hone in on assessment and goals and services, and really be there to support IEP teams at schools. So Betsy's been doing amazing with that work. Shifting a little bit to curriculum and instruction. We just have here the for the resource specialist programs. These are some of the supplementary programs that are used at some of the sites. We have them listed there. Essentially, what we're doing is we're working on students' IEP goals. That's why they're in special education, and that's why they're receiving services. And the goals are met, or the goals are worked on in session. They're also worked on in the general ed setting. So, these programs help make progress on goals, but there is also, a very practical kind of communication with the classroom teachers, making sure that the students are making progress in those areas, because the goals are tied in with how they're doing, obviously, in their academics. So that's just a list of not everybody uses all of those programs. You can see we have kind of a mixed bag. So we would like to move forward eventually with identifying a couple of kind of go-to. And so we don't have a mixed bag of different pieces that RSP teachers use. Our special day classes, so our self-contained specialized programs, has a really great curriculum for language arts, math, and social studies called Unique Learning Curriculum. It is standards-based, but it's very, very, the grade levels are very much lower. So it can be instructive, a good instructional piece for students who might be at that level. The social studies is pretty cool too, so because it has a current events part to it. So, within these specialized programs, our students are learning about current events through this curriculum. It's a great curriculum. And we also have some of the supplemental pieces here. I mean, obviously, like Bridges and CPM, those are our curriculums. So they have the some of those interventions built in that we use. And then, with our special day classes too, we have the general ed, what's happening in the general ed classes, and a lot of what they do as well when they're not using the unique learning is that they're modifying the curriculum, and then they're differentiating, and presenting to their students. So yeah, our RSP programs, students that are in small groups are grouped according to life goals, individual IEP goals and needs. When we talk about learning center rooms here, that's basically the RSP classroom. That's what that means there. So we obviously provide direct instruction in those rooms. We also push our staff into classrooms and provide support within the classrooms. That counts as service minutes. So IEP teams will implement that type of service if that's what the student needs. And then study skills and executive functioning. So those types of skills become obviously more and more important as the student, is getting older. We really want to make sure we are touching on that if we need to with students. Sometimes there's goals in those areas too that we're working on as far as study skills and executive functioning. Special day class, again, grouped similarly. Direct instruction, push in, kind of similar. So, but all the instruction takes place within the same classroom for students with that placement. They do mainstream to general ed classes, but the core would take place in the special day classrooms. So moving forward, like we talked about with that school services recommendation, we really want to formalize, communicate our processes for initial referrals. So we have that in there because there are so many students being referred for initial referrals that we may put a couple of other pieces in place there. So we're looking at that. And additional services like we talked about. We're continuing our compliance work on assessment goals, services for students. FAPE stands for Free and Appropriate Public Education, which is what we have to offer students. For program development, we are bringing the WAVES class back next school year at IDL. So this is a therapeutically kind of mental health infused special day class that we have had. We didn't have it we haven't had it for the last couple of school years just because we haven't had the students. Now we have the students to build the class back. So we're bringing that class back. That's very popular with other districts, by the way. So we will see about that. We want to be able to serve our own students, but I know that, this year I got several calls from other districts wanting to place students in our program. Inclusive practices, we talked about that. We'll be working with Changing Perspectives next year. So really looking forward to that work. And then so proud of the work we do with our special education parents. We have an amazing CPAC, Special Education Parent Advisory Committee, amazing CPAC chair, Linda Benares, so great to work with all of CPAC. And throughout everything we do in special education, we are always emphasizing parent participation, meaningful parent participation in the IEP process. It's like a crucial part of the IEP process and kind of parents' procedural safeguards. So, and you can kind of hit that in many different ways, that participation. So just continuing to emphasize that moving forward. Happy to take any questions.
A couple of questions. Do you have the breakdown of the 16.4% of students with IEPs now by disability area? So understanding SLB versus
I could pull that
and just seeing if that's changed year over year, and then so by disability category, and then also by grade level, maybe when referrals are being made to understand if there are trends. Typically third grade sees a bunch of referrals and so forth, but just to see if there's anything kind of interesting about those trends. And then I just wanted to highlight that your point is very well taken, that we do have a high number of students with IEPs at 16.4%. That's over 3% higher than the state, which sits at 13%. And even our non-public school at 2% of those special education students is double the state average. So the need in this district is not representative of the state. It's much higher than the state. And it's very interesting considering, we have lower, Title I or unduplicated student. There are some areas where we have a lot of lower need compared to the state. And in this area, we just have a higher need. So that's just a comment. And then the third request is, IEPs by need, by grade level, and then staffing, particularly special education staffing by student ratios, because I think that would be interesting to compare to the state level as well. Like how many psychologists do we have per 1,000 students or what have you? How many paraprofessionals do we have and what have you? And maybe that's in the special education report too. I imagine they did something like that.
There are, I have to go back in and see exactly what those comparisons were, but I know that they were making comparisons in staffing, so we can look at that.
Yeah, and then one question on the resource specialists, do they have content certifications as well?
Sorry, do they have?
Content certification?
Content certifications. So
like a multi-subject credential or a single subject credential?
They don't have to have that.
Do we know if they do?
It's the ed specialist credential is what they need.
Right. Some do, and
some do. Some
they can go straight into the special ed credential program.
Okay, so I guess one question is, depending on who's leading direct instruction, if that resource specialist doesn't necessarily have a content specialization, making sure that they have a content expert instructor there. That's been noted in a lot of special education studies where, students with IEPs need sometimes the most support in content area. And so having a content expert support that intervention is really important to help them meet their goals. And then the other question that I had was around the learning center and how often students spend time in the learning center versus a general education classroom.
So
not the special day classroom, but
right. And the learning center would have been students who have like resource support. Right. And I'm going to throw a number out there, like let's say 90 minutes weekly. So they would maybe have 2 45-minute sessions, 3 30-minute sessions in that room, and that's their services. They're getting their services there. The rest of the time they're in that general education setting. So they would just go there to receive their services and then back.
And I guess I'm also curious about when that time is being placed. Yeah. I just remember as a former math teacher, I remember certain students with IEPs were taken out of my math time to get their time, but they needed the most support in math. And so I was always confused as to why they were being removed. So just making sure that kind of timing makes sense, that they're getting that content expertise as well as the resource support that they need. And then my last question is around the initial referrals. Is that largely coming from teachers or parents?
It's a mix.
It's a mix.
It really is a mix. We do get quite a lot of parent requests. There's a lot of just internal referrals. I think this will, I do like UDL, MTSS, this is going, eventually, this will make a difference.
And the SST, I mean, as you noted in that chart that you showed, that's kind of first line of support that's offered. And so I think your point on getting that right and consistent and implemented.
And the philosophy, because the SST really is an incredible tool. It's a team of people that will put interventions in place. Yeah. So we need to do that, revisit, maybe even revisit again before we just, go to a testing situation. So
totally agree. I just wanted to note that this is obviously going to put, as was mentioned earlier in our budget, an extreme constraint on the budget going forward as well. And so I think as much as we can investigate areas where we can support those students in the general classroom.
Yes.
Great.
Any other questions? I just have a question. Do you have, just in your expertise, do you have any clues to why there's such a large trend with the IEP requests?
It does have to do with, it's tied in with the work that we're talking about with the UDL and the MTSS. So it comes from a place of just wanting to help students really quickly and immediately. And we know that special ed exists. We have the specialists here, that's tangible. Sometimes when we don't have solid tier 2 interventions or, things right away to implement, we go right to what we do have. It's really hard to put your finger on it, but I think more interventions on that front end, on that left side of the eligibility is really kind of where we need to go. We need to give it more time. We need to add more, be a little bit more innovative maybe with what we're doing out of the SSTs.
We were in the middle of our struggle, mostly trying to figure it out financially in terms of the excess costs, but kind of scratching our head looking at that. And then I went to my fellow meeting the next day, and every single district is in the same boat. But I think exactly what John said is that if we improve our tier 1 instruction, our classroom instruction, including support for students that are not need extra support in that place, that will help reduce some of that. But it's not an easy lift, right? It's not you say this and it magically happens. It's some pretty significant work.
I just had a couple comments. Your CPEC parents are great and very supportive and very active, and they get together and support each other very well. Yeah. I've been in on those meetings. I have been seeing the unique current events used a lot recently, and it seems to be a really good program and a good level. But I was wondering with the SDC class, is there an organized training of paras, especially new ones or subs or something like that, where there's more of a universal training of basic procedures? Or it seems a lot of people are thrown in.
No, there isn't.
The street.
And I know that they're training. I mean,
I mean everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have that. We would love to have that. We know that is needed. Yes, we hire people. There's
what to expect.
There is some. I mean, that happens. Yeah. It's not so structured. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's and we don't have a set way that we go about it. Sometimes Betsy Belkin will meet the new paraeducator and help the person.
It's I think we have paras that have been there forever, but there's probably a whole bunch at the beginning that.
Yeah.
And they may last longer if they have more training and organization on it.
As soon as they step foot in the door, the teachers training them, always like every day, but like we would love to add some sort of district level
Basic procedures, not so much policies, but yeah, what to do, what not to do in different situations. If you've got a runner or stuff like that.
Yeah. Now we do have the proactive training, so that's a really that's that training where we learn how to de-escalate behaviors, and if we have to intervene physically, how to do that the safe way. So we did have quite a lot of staff do that proactive training this school year, including some classified staff. But that could be during the school year. Like it would be great to have.
But that would be a situation a lot of subs would be in the training.
Yeah. So it'd be good to do something before they go into the classroom.
Any other questions? They asked all the questions I wanted to ask. All right. Do we need a 5-minute bathroom break, or wouldn't I just power through? You're good? Are you okay with it? Yeah. Okay. All right. Next, wellness committee update.
Okay. After the wellness committee update, we're going to have to vote to.
Okay, great.
It seems as though we're going to have to go to 11 o'clock. Is there a motion to go to extend our time to 11 o'clock?
A second.
All in favor? And motion passes.
If it's 11, we may want to take a 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Round it up. Yeah.
Okay. Local wellness policy. So, thanks, Will. The background on the local wellness policy is since we participated in National School Lunch, School Breakfast, we must have a local school wellness policy. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read the bullet points, but that is all of the what kind of the contents of a wellness policy. So all of those pieces. You have the wellness policy. It's this big document. So go ahead. So we had 2 wellness committee meetings, and our wellness committee is there. It was great. It was me and Lori Miller, Julie Gallagher, a nutrition cook from Ortega, was there. She was awesome. And then Connor Science school counselor. We met on January 31st and March 28th. We did a lot of work we only had 2 meetings, so it's not like we could do very much, but just crank out the policy. Like that was our charge for the school year. So that's what we were really focusing on. We did work independently on that as well. So we had kind of a living document. And the big change is we added a lot to the wellness policy about mental health. So Connor was instrumental in really developing that part of the policy. So you have the policy. Our next steps are we're going to assemble the committee for next school year, and we want to schedule the meetings at the at the onset of the school year before the school year starts. So we have that there. There's some things that we need to do about updates for assessments and communication of the wellness policy. We would love to also get some community members into the wellness committee in the way that the CDE talks about it. They talk about outreach and they talk about, communication and getting people to the table. And we really want to do that next year. We want to have people to know that we have this committee, that we help have the wellness policy and get more people to the table. Go ahead. Okay. I think that's definitely it.
All right. Are there any questions?
I don't think there's another slide.
Any questions about this? Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's move on to further information on item 1C of the May 10, 2023 personnel changes. Item 9E. This is an action item.
Good evening. It is recommended that the board approve the correction of the substitute classification for Cynthia Skinner from classified substitute to certificated substitute effective January 12, 2023. That was listed as item 1C on May 10th, 2023 personnel changes. At the Pacifica School Board meeting on May 10th, 2023, a correction of the substitute classification for Cynthia Skinner was presented in the personnel changes. The Board of Trustees requested more background information, and the item was moved to May 31st, 2023 board meeting. There was an error on the personnel changes presented at the January 18, 2023 Pacifica School District Board meeting, where Cynthia Skinner was listed as a classified substitute, 2E. Cynthia Skinner is a certificated retiree that previously dedicated 35 years of service to the Pacifica School District. Ms. Skinner should have been listed as a certificated substitute. Cynthia Skinner was hired to support the administration of the English Language Proficiency Assessment for California on a temporary basis. Historically, both certificated substitutes, classified substitutes, and classified personnel on a time card have been hired for temporary work to support the administration of short-term English Language Proficiency Assessment for California, LPAC. It has been past practice to share this work among both certificated and classified subs and classified personnel. Also to note, per Education Code 45134, certificated retirees are not able to work in a classified position except under certain circumstances as a teacher's aide. This is to show that Cynthia Skinner should have been listed as a certificated substitute from the start and is the reason for the correction. Our Director of Educational Support Services, Will Lucy, will present more on the history of English learner assessments in the Pacifica School District.
All right, yes.
Presentation would be appreciated.
Yes, I got it. I got it up there, right? Yeah. So yes, so the this is specifically about the EL assessment history within Pacifica School District. So a little bit of a background for LPAC testing. Each year we have around, it's usually over 250, it's around 270. Sometimes it climbs to closer to 300 identified English learners that are required to be given the LPAC summative. That's one LPAC test. There's the LPAC summative that's given every year to all identified students that are English learners. Incoming students identified through the home language survey as having a second language are required to be given what's called the initial LPAC. And that's around 60 students, but that also varies. We've had up to 90, we've had as low as 50. That is each year. Most of those students are, most of the students there are the kindergartners or the TKs that are first coming in. But there are some students that come to us and they come directly from, or they're new to the school, and so and they're on their home language survey. They've indicated a second language. So all initials, all of the sections of the initials are administered one-on-one, meaning that they need to be administered one-to-one. For the summative tests, which is, again, those students that are already identified English learners, all sections of the K2 portion of the summative and the speaking and listening sections for the 3-8 are also administered one-to-one. The summative reading and writing sections of the 3-8 of 3rd through 8th are administered as a group. The BSM, which is the bilingual, this is a bit of the history now. So the BSM, which is the bilingual syntax matrix. Anyway, if you had been in education before 2001, it was the main way of identifying English language proficiency. And before 2001 in Pacific School District, ESL certificated teacher and 2 bilingual classified paraprofessionals really took that on. They were the ones that gave that test. For the most part, again, that assessment was given one-to-one. The CELT, which was the former LPAC, which was the California English Language Development Test from 2001 to 2017, our English learner coordinator, certificated teacher, which was a certificated teacher, and 2 bilingual classified paraprofessionals were the ones that mainly did the task of doing the one-on-one sections of that. The CELT was mostly could mostly be given in a group setting, but there were certain sections that needed to be given one-to-one, and those were the responsibility of the EL coordinator and the 2 bilingual classified paraprofessionals. And then the LPAC, which was from 2018 to the present, the EL coordinator position was eliminated in 2015, and the ESS department became responsible for identifying test administrators. So this is the recent history of the LPAC testing. Each year we pull from the classified and certificated subpools for LPAC examiners to administer the one-to-one initial during September and the summative in February, the one-to-one summatives in summative sections in February. We have had both classified and certificated substitutes help with administration. In the most recent year, in 22-23, we had 3 classified and 1 certificated substitute help with the LPAC administration. Challenges, and I think this is an important component, is we've always had every year, definitely since I've been here, we've had a challenge of getting LPAC examiners. Part of it is that there's been a lack of staff within the substitute pool who are not just capable, but who are available to do that, to be those examiners. Many of those in the substitute pools are at sites being substitutes for the sites, and the classifieds are usually either it's a limited number of classified substitutes, or those classified substitutes are actually regularly working at sites in classified positions as subs. So the current classified staffs have been asked to put in time cards for time spent outside of their work time to test students. So we've had classified staff that have their position at a school site as a paraprofessional or teacher aide or so forth, and then outside of their hours, we've been able to have some of them outside their hours actually give the LPAC assessment, give the LPAC tests. The other place we've pulled from, which has been retired, certificated, and classified staff have been asked to come back to be examiners. One, there was a classified staff, I forget her name, but when I first started there, she was kind of a regular that would come back and help out with LPAC testing. And then we've also had a retired certificated staff person come back, and not necessarily retired from our district, but retired from a different district, and lived in Pacifica. And we had her; she was willing to come back and be an examiner. Current certificated staff are asked to do the group testing. So the non-one-to-one assessments, usually the group testing falls under the coordination of the vice principal or the support teacher at the staff at the site, and certificated teachers, classroom teachers sometimes, if they group the students together, will actually provide the LPAC testing for those group sections. And then this is a really big one lately, and this really happened this past year, or last year and this year, was that there's been new requirements for LPAC examiners to be trained. And the training that it's called Moodle training, and it's required for all initial and summative examiners that they need to have before they can begin. 2 years ago, you could give the LPAC without the training actually being done. You can be doing the LPAC training as you're doing it, and it was a much smaller, shorter training. But with the adjustment in the LPAC assessment, and also this new requirement of them being actually having to do it beforehand. The initial LPAC training takes 30 to 35 hours of training, and the summative one takes actually 40 hours. It takes a full week, and sometimes even more than a full week, depending on the amount of calibration that they have to do and the amount of sections. If they're doing the 3rd through 8th and they're also doing the K1, there's different calibrations for both. So that takes a little bit longer for that. So those are the challenges. So that's just a kind of a general idea of the challenges and the history of LPAC testing that relate to this item.
So my first question is, it was just a mistake, the way that it was being put on paper.
Yes.
I just have a question about the advertisement. Did you have like a flyer go out to like the personnel that's working within the district, about the LPAC testing, or was it on EdJoin?
We did not. So the confusion is that in August of 19, there was a paraprofessional English language development positions that were posted, and there was 2 of them. And those were not necessarily only for LPAC testing, but it was to support and serve students that are learning English as a second language. And so that was the primary purpose. And there was 2 positions posted August 19th. On September 30th, we realized there wasn't enough funding for the second position. And so we pulled 1. And again, it had not been filled. And so there was 1 posted position from September 30th to October 26th. October 26th is when I recruited Paula Suter to hey, this is available. Are you interested? That she was having some difficulties at her site. And then she thought about it. She asked some questions about it. I gave her information and she put her transfer paperwork in. And so then they interviewed her the day after and she was able to obtain that position. And I believe that position is paid by the Learning Recovery Grants.
Actually, that position was paid by Title III. And I do want to jump in here and say there was originally 2 positions available, but we didn't have the funding available for those 2 positions. But again, those were positions that were not just for LPAC testing. We were obviously going to utilize, especially in the beginning of the year, or for that, she was hired after the beginning of the year, but during the February, her first assignment was up at Sunset Ridge to support our English language learners up there in various different capacities, but being an English learner paraprofessional. But in February, she came to the district office and did the week of the Moodle training and then started the assessment for February and March, and now is returned back to Sunset Ridge to continue the position that she was hired for. But we had the intention of, when she was hired, to utilize her to do this task, but it wasn't a position that she was done. Yeah. And
then the position was archived after she was hired, because there was only 1 position. And there's confusion and thought that there was still this other position that was still available, and it was not. I think that's where the confusion happened. And this is shared work. So it's not CELT anymore, it's LPAC, but this testing is shared work among certificated and classified. Current certificated teachers can test their own students. They don't need to have others come in and do it for them, but we do that for the 1-to-1.
Yeah. I did the Moodle training and I was an LPAC tester and I was classified. It's kind of interesting, like one district from another district, like all the library technicians were just told, you are going to do the LPAC testing. And it was so that we could justify our time. And so, so all of the library technicians where I worked were doing the LPAC testing for that. And, in my opinion, if the teacher is available, that would probably be the best person to do it, because it is, a week-long testing where you're learning just a lot. And the calibrations were very tough. especially if you're not doing it every single day. And so I understand that part. So I'm just curious why it's so different from one district to the next on who's doing the LPAC testing. But I can also see that you need to be flexible, and that, either the district or the principal is the one that's finding the best people to do the testing on the students, whether it's the teacher or a classified person.
There was a period of time, right as we all came back to school, that we had to get that LPAC testing done, and it was a scramble. We just said, we're not going to make this deadline. Like, we have to do it. So
yeah. So the other part of it is, and what you're mentioning there is within the LPAC website in California CDE, it has verbiage that says they highly recommend a certificated teacher to give the assessment, but do understand that the one-on-one means where do you find the time to do, especially if you have a large percentage of students in your class doing that. So I totally see it. San Francisco Unified used to have a person from the district office come out, and they were classified and certificated staff that would actually just run through a school and do all the LPAC testing. It wasn't the best model because you want the teacher who actually is instructing the student to have a good idea through the process of testing. They'll get a good idea of language proficiency. But sometimes it just wasn't realistic to get to everybody in that short time frame, February, March.
So our action that we're asking you for tonight is approval of Cynthia Skinner as a certificated sub to correct for our errors. That's the only thing that you are approving. She's already been paid, so it's not as though that's, but it's just approving that because we did pull that from the agenda.
Any other questions? All right, do I have a motion to approve item 1C of the May 10th, 2023 personnel changes?
I will make a motion to approve item 1C.
So do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, courtroom.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes 4-0.
All right, next is contract regarding Ocean Shore School Building D addition.
Thank you. So as we complete our facilities master plan, we went ahead and did the bid opening for the Ocean Shore Building D addition and site work. That includes all of the site work, demolition, some new retaining wall, chain link fencing, and underground telephone and irrigation patches. So we are asking the board tonight the recommendation is to award the contract to Andrini Brothers, Inc. And we ask the board to authorize staff to enter into contract with Andrini Brothers, Inc.
Are there any questions regarding this item? All right, do I have a motion to enter into contract with the lowest possible bidder for this strategic project?
Make a motion. Oh, wait. Sorry. I'm motion to enter into contract.
I'll second.
Okay.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes 4-0.
It's interesting to see our reaction times when we're exhausted.
All right, employment agreement contract with Darnice Williams.
The next one is one of the things that got overlooked in the employment was 5 days of transition time. I can promise you Dr. Williams has already been doing the work, but this is compensation for 5 days. She will do the work and then submit a time card on July 1st and be paid at the end of the month on July if you will approve. Any questions?
No questions. Do I have a motion to approve the attached employment agreement contract? I'll make a motion to approve.
A second.
Okay. Oh, did you? You're going to wait. Okay.
All in favor, please raise
Okay.
your hand.
Thanks.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay. And finally, possible rescheduling of the August 2023 regular board meeting from August 2nd to August 9th.
President Rupini is going to be out of town on August 2nd and has asked if the trustees would consider moving to the 9th. Barbara polled all trustees. They're all available on the 9th. So thumbs up. Okay, is that a motion?
Okay, so do I have a motion to reschedule the August 2nd meeting to regular board meeting to the August 9th?
I'll make a motion to reschedule August 2nd to August 9th.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
I'll second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. All right, finally, future agenda items.
Future agenda items. So we do have a meeting in 2 more weeks, and that is for approval of both the budget and the LCAP. We're going to have the teaching and learning is going to be 2 parts. One is around the student achievement, the formative assessment from iReady, and then all 6 schools are going to do a school plan for student achievement. 3 of them have to do it as a part of the ATSI additional targeted support. So all 6 schools are going to do that, and that will be a nice thing for all 6 schools to start with their new plans. That is going to also be a long meeting, so other items? Great, see you on the 14th.
All right, and with that, during the meeting at 10:41 p.m.
Thank you for all of the nice recognition.